What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph Brocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt. And joining us today is Mr. Steve Teeple, otherwise known, we call him Mr. Teeps, or just Teeps.
What's up, guys?
And Brograph is a supplement to our site, brograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other MoGraph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. And you can email us, brograph@brograph.com. We really would like to get your feedback on the show, what you like about it, what you hate about it, what you would like to hear on the show, topic
Mostly
ideas.
what you like about it, not what you hate about it.
Yeah. Tell us what you'd like us to talk about. If you have questions about Cinema 4D or After Effects or anything related to the industry, let us know. Again, brograph@brograph.com, and you can also check us out on all the other social media networks, such as Twitter, for example. That's always a good place to get in contact with us. So send it in.
Or you can join us on our Slack channel, brograph.com/Slack, and you can sign up and come hang out, ask questions.
Come hang out. Yeah, there's a lot of people willing to help in there.
Yeah, just be prepared, because as soon as your phone goes off of do not disturb mode in the morning, your notifications are going to be just swinging at you.
Yeah, or just turn off notifications.
I had to do that twice today. Liam,
Yeah,
I'm looking at you.
I don't use that at all. I just go in and say, okay, you have 300 missed messages.
Yep.
From Thanksgiving, and I just go from there.
Yeah, just turn those off.
Yeah. So it's been a long week, even though it was a short
long
week.
Yes.
You know, we had one particular just humongous project come in the door right before Thanksgiving, and as I'm sure happens to a lot of people.
We did not just have one. We had three big projects.
Yes, true.
Basically, our entire month has been made up of 1.5 weeks.
Right. And so it's one of those things, I'm sure a lot of people get this where it's like, oh, we have to have this thing done and it has to be done before Thanksgiving because everybody's leaving. And so we were doing that. Thanksgiving projects, having stuff done by Thanksgiving can be rough. Same thing. I remember last year, same thing. Have to have it done by Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So it took us a while to get the show up last week.
So thank you for your patience.
Yeah. By Tuesday, I just got the audio up there with no notes, no anything, just so people could have it. Mm-hmm. And then it took me a while to even get YouTube and all that other stuff going. But thanks for your patience. I don't think it'll be as crazy this week, so you should be hearing this Monday afternoon.
Hopefully not.
So a couple things from this week I wanted to go over.
Uh-huh.
Number one, I don't know if this is a new thing or what, or if it's an option, but I've noticed in Cinema 4D, connect and delete with splines acts differently than it used to.
I don't think, does it?
So here's the deal. And maybe I'm just doing something wrong. I don't use
connect and delete with splines. Anytime I'm doing splines and merging them together, I'll do the kind of like the Pathfinder thing in Illustrator.
Well, here's the deal. Let's say you take two circle splines.
Right.
And they're made out of 4 points each.
Right.
Okay. And you take the two splines and you do a connect and delete. I used to do this all the time. Mm-hmm. And it would just basically put the two as two different splines. Now what it does is it creates a million points all around the circles.
That's weird.
And I don't know if it's new. Am I doing something wrong? I don't know.
I have no answer for you.
So if anybody knows what's going on there, let me know. That's my question for everybody else. Something else that came up. Steve, are you familiar with X Particles? Do you use that a lot?
I do not use it much. I'm very familiar with what it is and people that use it and people that are way better at it than me, but I do not actually use it. I'm not much of a particles guy. I'm usually more of a characters kind of environment person.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I'm getting more and more familiar with X Particles every time I use it. Getting deeper and deeper into it. And by the way, thanks Liam for helping me with a couple things this week.
Totally.
So I'm having this issue, and I don't know if it has to do with subsampling or what it is, but I've got particles that are exiting a domain, and when they exit, they start to split up a little bit to where I'm getting these harsh lines. And I cannot figure out what's going on. So that's going to kind of be my morning tomorrow, is figuring out why I'm getting lines going through my sets of particles. So again, if anybody knows, outsourcing all my problems.
Every time I see an X particle solution, it's always so over my head that I was like, wow, that's something I'll get into eventually, maybe.
I've only played, so we bought an extra license of X particles this past week to work on this project because we knew we were going to need it. And so like this was, I've used RealFlow in the past, and that is relatively simple to understand. But X particles, like I've tried it before, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, yeah, it's way over my head too. So literally just Google searched what I was looking for and followed the tutorial to a T,
Yeah.
I
always see what Mario's posting from that.
Mario's stuff is so good.
Yeah, he's
ridiculous.
Shout outs to Mario. His stuff's amazing.
Yeah.
The other thing that I told Matt this week, I'm like, if you know X particles, RealFlow is like super easy.
Yeah, it's
after that.
It's super cake.
It's like a scaled down version of it completely. So,
and are you talking about RealFlow, the C4D plugin, the new
RealFlow, the
version.
C40 plugin?
Yeah, because I know it got updated recently, and I've heard decent things about it now, which is cool. So
yeah, I'm interested to get the new version and play with snow. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, they threw me the beta. I was testing the beta, but I didn't actually really do anything with it. I mean, it was pretty cool, but anytime I'm using RealFlow, I'm not using it for anything other than just making water.
Yeah, someone reached out to me about beta testing that a while ago too, and I don't do stuff like that really, so it's hard for me to beta test something like that. But my good friend John, who's a VFX guy in Milwaukee, and he just uses it like crazy and sends me videos all the time, and it looks really impressive. So
yeah.
Do you? I'm guessing you use After Effects a lot, then, right?
yeah, for compositing, and I do a lot of like. I've been using like Plexus type stuff for some visual effects every once in a while, but yeah, mostly compositing these days. I used to use it a lot more. I have to say that my After Effects usage has become pretty simple. It's just like compositing my 32-bit depth passes and adding some color correction and motion blur and all that good stuff. But I'm pretty simple with it, to be honest with you. Although I do find myself even editing photos in it sometimes because it's got a really nice workflow.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I feel like I wish Photoshop was a little more like After Effects.
Yeah. There's a few things like adding quick adjustment layers or sub comps are sometimes more organized than layers are to me sometimes. It has some benefits, and also you have plugins that you can have be for stills. Like if you want to add some kind of visual effect on something. It might be hard to achieve that in Photoshop, so there's things that you can do in After Effects which are pretty cool.
Yeah, if you want to add a lens flare, you have to use the 1990 default lens flare that's still there in Photoshop.
Yeah, unless you want to add in your own image or something. But I mean, there's some benefits for sure.
That's what Dave does in Photoshop. He just only uses it for lens flares.
Just for lens flares.
It's all about that filter gallery, man. Some good stuff in there. Bubble wrap, come on. It's good stuff.
I've been in the newest version of AE on Windows, and something's been driving me nuts. Have you had these weird RAM hangs? Basically, like you hit spacebar to RAM preview, and it starts to RAM preview and load, but like it won't play anymore.
Yep.
Like all of a sudden,
I've had that for the last 3 versions.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just like it's loading it, and it's like, okay, we'll play, and it won't play. It's just continuously loading the RAM, and you're stuck. You got to close it and open it back up again.
Yeah, mine does the whole green bar, and it will fill it, and then it just doesn't play. And then you'll close the app and reopen it and try it one more time, and it will work. Or you flush the cache, and it will work. But it does that same thing. It will load the green bar, stop, or it will say it's loaded, and then you click to like play it early, and it just plays the first like 2 frames and loops over and over again.
Yeah.
And it just never seems to be. It's got to be something with my setup. I don't know. I always assume my Windows setup is janky or something, but.
But see, that's the thing. There's always these problems that come up, and it's like, oh, this has been happening for 2 versions, 3 versions, and nobody's fixed it. Like, I mean, this doesn't happen with other software. It's got to be the After Effects.
That used to not happen before they moved over to the subscription method. Like, I feel like they were so much more flushed out. until then once they moved over to the subscription, it was just like,
well, can you imagine the
we'll get
approval
to it
process?
eventually.
I mean, can you imagine the approval process for getting something pressed to discs and packaging physically? Like,
That's
compared
true.
compared to
Totally.
like getting it pushed out as an update. Like, there has got to be so much more rigorous testing, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing. That's the thing, right? Because even if you could download it before, it was like, it had to be a big point version, and it's like,
It was like
well,
an
now
ISO.
all we have to, it's an ISO, and like it's like now it's like if there's a bug, we'll just fix it later. Don't worry about it. We'll just put it out anyway.
My biggest beef with that stuff is it just seems like sometimes they're very in touch, but like there's little minor things like that. Like it's not even like that I need new features. I just want like minor stuff fixed sometimes. Yeah, maybe it's just me, but it's good whenever I post about my RAM preview issues. Other people chime in that I'm not alone.
Right. Exactly.
I've got I use Synergy for my 3 computers, so 1 mouse, 1 keyboard, and I cannot use it correctly on my Mac. Like anytime I hit spacebar, it doesn't let me use the hand at all. And anytime I try and use the hand in order to like move around in my composition and stuff, it always starts playing. And, oh no, you need 2 frames in order to preview and stuff. It's so stupid.
That lovely error.
Which I got some beef with Synergy. They just released a new version, and like apparently you can get the basic version for $20, which is what they charged for the old version.
Wasn't it free and open source before
It
for a long
was
time?
free and open source. Back in the day, it was called Synergy KM.
Yeah, because
And
that's
so-
been
and-
forever since I've used it.
Yeah, you can still download it. It's just a pain in the butt to set up. So the new one, or the version 1 of, it's now called Seamless, like it actually works pretty well, but it occasionally the copy and paste just doesn't work. So like they did a new like they redid it, and now it's version 2, but in order to get the copy and paste feature from one computer to the next, you have to pay for the pro version, which is $50. That's like, come on, dude, I already paid for this. And it's like, on it they say, oh yeah, you'll have whatever for life, you'll have this
updates.
serial for life, and it's like, for version 1.
Yeah.
No, I mean, is that still using wasn't it using weird almost like VPN tunneling or something to connect your machines back in the day? Like, I don't remember what it is now.
I don't know how it does it. I think it just I don't know. The only thing I know is you have to have Bonjour installed on your PC.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's using the over-the-air network, which is why I remember I worked for a university when I was in college, and they wouldn't let me install it because it was like a university-owned computer, and it was using an unsecured connection or something to connect to it. But this was early 2000s or something, so it was
supposedly they're working on some sort of encryption or something or other. I don't know. They've been talking about it for years.
Yeah,
But still, come on.
I have
already
a simple.
paid for it. Don't make me pay more for it. Just update it to where I don't lose my copy and paste all the time.
Yeah, I use a simple KVM switch, but it's not a fancy one. It's only for one monitor, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, by the way, our Cyber Monday sale is going on. We're extending it through Friday.
Are we?
In case you're hearing this, yes, we are.
I think we should extend it till Christmas, honestly.
Till Christmas? Well,
I think
maybe
so.
we will.
Maybe we will.
Maybe we won't, though.
You guys are generous.
So you
Maybe
should
you
pick
should
it up
buy it
now,
by
is what you're
Friday.
saying.
Right. But up to 30% off on everything that we've got on the site, including the stuff that isn't Brograph branded. There's a little bit of a discount. So we've got Luminous, the Spotlight for Octane. We've got MoGraph Light. We've got we got Luminous Light, and we got Pixel Dirt Shader, which is for Octane as well. So check those out if you've been meaning to pick them up. We've noticed that people have been buying them here the last couple days.
Yeah, so thank you guys.
Yeah. And we're also going to come out with another Corona tutorial this week.
Oh, sweet.
That's
I'd say it was sweet because I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, I've actually had that sitting here. I haven't gotten to it yet, so I need to post that.
Is Corona GPU based currently?
No, CPU.
CPU.
Okay.
But it's one of the faster CPU renderers.
Oh yeah, name's been around for a while. I just haven't really kept up with it.
Yeah.
It's been pretty interesting to see these tutorials because, I didn't know that much about Corona.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of seeing how it works and the fact that, with the right CPU setup, you can have it working almost as well as like Octane or any of these other GPU engines. It's really cool. And so we're going to have that this week. There's more of those coming out, as well as probably another Redshift tutorial. And we're going to go back to our live Thursday, Redshift Thursday. So there's that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that we've got another Brograph Jam coming up in December.
Yes.
We are going to get a site up for this ahead of time this time, because last time people...
Let me just let me just interrupt real quick. So what happened last time, so in case you guys haven't watched, like we did a live stream with while we were at Dead Mouse's house, building content for his cube and stuff. And we were on the live stream and a whole bunch of you amazing artists showed up, who aren't a part of his normal, feed.
I watched that.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. So, and it was very cool to have everyone show up. And like, since you guys were all C40 users, and a lot of people who knew us were like, hey, throw me the template. We want to make some stuff. And so we thought, we'd do a more, here's the thing. Like, it's one thing saying, hey, will you work for exposure? That's not what we want it to seem like. Right. What I want it to do is, if you guys want to do something or do something for fun, what we're going to do is we're just going to jam together, create a bunch of visuals for the cube, and we're going to throw the template out there for people to download so that you can kind of see how it's set up. And if you want to create something, awesome, totally, like get it done, throw it to us, and we'll get it over to them. So it's kind of like, I hate saying, it's for exposure, but in a way it kind of is, because you'll actually be submitting
and it may
stuff
not necessarily make it
to
the not necessarily make it
exactly.
to the cube
And
either. We don't know.
Dave and David and I, while we were there, we were just creating content. And a lot of it, some of it didn't even get used for the cube. It's just, we're just creating content, and that's what it is.
Just for people to know on that too, that's how it happens in the industry all the time. You don't always get your stuff in there. So,
So anyway, but it's, I know EJ threw some stuff to us this past jam, and he got his stuff up on the cube and stuff. It was very cool. It was a lot of fun to be able to interact with everyone and just kind of do like one big collaboration on a fun project. So anyway.
So there'll be a page that's going to be up that will have the template to download for Cinema. You can go in, do your thing, and you throw it back to us, and you send us a link to two things. You could send us your project file so that we could open and render it. It's going to be way more likely that we use it if you already have it rendered.
Yeah.
But, it might be one of those things where we get it and we're like, oh, this is great, except there's this one little error here, and so we need the project files in order to do it. But it's up to you. Like, if you have the time and you want to mess around and kind of do something, or you have an idea and you want to throw it at us, we could even like take a project file and expand upon it, like if you don't have time. So there'll be
and
a
the
whole
cool
site.
thing is he's got the mini cube now. So like we actually get to see how this really looks on this mini cube, and you'll kind of get to see how your stuff looks on the cube as well.
And the mini cube works with Mercury engine in After Effects. So like anything we're setting up, we can actually see it on the fly, which is really sweet.
Yeah. I want to know more about this Mercury engine. I don't know what you're talking about, but that sounds cool.
It's basically like the playback engine for After Effects. You could like have a display that's like a live display
from
After Effects, not instead of just like a window, but the cube works with, a mini cube works with it.
Yeah.
So, this time around, it's like we won't have to, kind of like fake it or kind of, put it in some sort of template to see what it will look like. We'll actually have a real physical, like mini version of the set to look at it on. And it's pixel for pixel. Like it's super high res because it's really small, pixel for pixel. So, should be interesting.
So that'll be up soon.
That'll be up soon. A couple other things. On the mouse and keyboard front, you
Yeah, dude. Okay,
got
so
a Logitech mouse, right? Or you
for,
almost got one.
My birthday is next Sunday. Just throwing that out there, So anyway, my birthday is next Sunday, and I was telling my wife for my birthday I really wanted this Logitech PowerPlay mouse pad, along with one of the wireless mouse so the mouse pad basically charges your mouse while you use it. So, my biggest beef with some of these Apple like Magic Mouses and stuff was that you always had to charge it, and that, I love having a wireless mouse, but I don't like having to charge it, So having basically the wireless mouse with the wireless charging pad, I mean, it's not really wireless. The charging pad has a wire coming out of it. But so anyway, I ordered it. She ordered it from Logitech. She gave it to me early. And they sent me the wrong mouse. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to buy something from Logitech, don't buy it through their website, because their website sucks. And
Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was
Go
saying.
through Amazon or something like that. So it was last Monday. I called them and they said, okay, we see there's an issue. We'll send you an email within 24 to 48 hours saying that we're working on it. I'm like, really? You can't just send me a packing slip, I'll send this back to you, and then you send me the correct one? They're like, no, this is the way we do it. So 48 hours later, I hadn't gotten an email back from them, so I called them again. They're like, okay, you will definitely get something today. Nothing. Nothing. So Friday, I call them again, and I'm just pissed. I was like, I'm going to put a stop payment on my credit card if you guys don't fix this today. So finally at midnight, I got an email from them saying, we're working on your refund. No, they said, can you take a picture of the mouse and the packing slip that you got with it? I'm like, really? So I took a picture. I sent it back. By this time, Black Friday had already happened, or was happening. I went on Best Buy. I found it for $50 cheaper. So I just told them, I said, give me a refund. And so finally today I get an email saying we're about to process your refund. You'll get an email when we process your refund.
And then the refund will take 7 to 10 days probably
right.
to hit your bank.
And it's like, at what point are you asking for the mouse back?
Yeah.
It's
they
like
don't
you're
even,
not.
I mean, that doesn't even matter to them.
It's so stupid. So anyway, Logitech sucks. Their stuff is pretty good.
Didn't they just get bought by somebody? Didn't they
I
just
have
get
no
bought?
idea. Did they?
I think they got bought by, I don't know if it's Dell or someone. I'd have to Google it, but I swear they just got bought by someone, or Logitech bought another brand. I think they got bought by somebody though.
So, and it's so stupid because they don't have the packing slip. It sends you to a website. It says, if you have issues, go to this website. It's like Logitech/support, right? But the website gives you a 404 message. It's like, what? Are you kidding me?
Logitech's a shell corporation. You're actually it's all shadow games.
It's like TeamViewer is the same problem. Like this week, everything went down for TeamViewer at midnight one night, and I'm like, let me check. And I go to status.teamviewer.com, and it's like error 404. I'm like, isn't the point to have that on a separate server so that you can show the status?
That's funny.
Whoops.
Coming from a brother that's a systems admin, companies do some dumb things.
Yeah, seriously. So anyway, if you're going to buy something from Logitech, don't go through the website. Go through Amazon or Best Buy or something like that. But the Power Play from, I actually opened it up. I should be getting my mouse from Best Buy here in a couple days. But the thing is freaking huge, and it's very smooth. And just using a regular mouse, it glides very nicely. So
I'm gonna have to look into that. I like that concept a lot. I can't wait for more wireless charging.
That's the big thing. My biggest thing that I hated about wireless mouse is that I was constantly replacing batteries.
Yeah, I have the little Apple charger next to me with the double A's on it.
I had an Apple Magic Mouse that you had an external battery that you put onto it, and then you just put it on the pad every night. But I'd always forget to put it on the pad, and I ended up just putting batteries in it all the time. You know? I don't know.
Or
anyway,
just use a wired mouse like me, and it's really
I have
simple.
that's what I have right now. And I don't know. It's something about like I also like I don't know how light it's gonna be, which worries me. Because I like a really light mouse. I don't like a really heavy mouse.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I like the Razer Mouse. Razer Mouse is good.
Yeah,
I'm using the original Death Adder. I like it. It's got a nice. I have big hands. I'm a big guy, so it's like the Death Adder is really nice on my hand, and it just has the simple 2 buttons on the side, middle mouse click. I have one of those crazy Corsair ones that my friend let me borrow that has like the MMO one with like the 20 buttons on the side. You can program into stuff. It's actually kind of complicated to program it, and my hand's too big for it. So it's like trying to like pinpoint this exact button in the middle of like a 10 button array is really hard. So
that's funny.
Yeah,
I'm currently using a Dynex wired
that sounds
mouse.
Great. It's like
it was
Kobe
like one of the
brand CD
cheapest
player.
ones. I bought it back when I was learning Maya, and I needed a middle mouse click.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to spend a ton of money on like a mouse, and I ended up. This is actually my favorite mouse that I own.
Nice.
I miss my old Logitech one. That one that was all like metal chrome looking thing on the top. It was like the MX series. Mine finally died, and I don't think you can get them anymore. I saw some like ZBrush artist porn went out for him as well because his died or something, and I was like,
That's
someone
funny.
else appreciates it.
That's funny.
After we just trashed Logitech, of course.
Right.
Next up, our sponsor, Logitech. Whoops.
Now, come on. Our sponsor's always Bose wireless.
Oh, that's
What
right.
is it?
Bose Select Comfort 35s.
Those are actually on sale right now. Should I get those? I kind of want them.
If you're in
Dude.
if you're in the market for headphones,
I like
would
the wireless ones. Yeah.
I would absolutely recommend the Bose 35.
Bose
Yeah, they
Select
have-
Comfort
they-
35.
I think they're $199 right now for Black Friday, or like $179 or something.
Jeez,
The
are
best.
they
They're
the
the
wireless
best.
ones?
The wireless ones are the $199, the updated ones. The $179 I think is the last year's model or something. But
See, we've got the last year's model, and we paid $325 for them.
No, yeah, I tried them at Apple once, and I was really impressed. They connected really nicely, but I might have to pick those up because it's going on until Monday. So
Yeah,
Dude,
I
they're
would do
so
that.
good, and the battery life is just forever.
Yeah.
On them.
Yeah,
awesome.
that's what we're
Yeah.
using right now.
You convinced
Yeah.
me.
So,
Steve, have you seen Coco yet?
yeah.
I have not. My good friend worked on that movie, though. I'm very happy to see it. Yes,
nice.
Fun fact: I live around the corner from Pixar, actually, in my neighborhood. So,
Really?
yeah,
Nice.
I'm near Emeryville, California, which is where Pixar's located, and it's like probably a 5-minute walk around the block.
That's
Oh.
cool.
Yeah,
Man, I absolutely loved it. I
heard it's amazing.
It is probably the best Pixar movie that they've done in years.
Yeah, I'm very excited because I haven't seen one I've been really gripped by in a while. And my friend said she was like near tears in this one and said it was just very good and very current and good topic to discuss, and was just really good.
Yeah,
awesome.
it was extremely good. But I'll tell you my biggest beef with it.
Yeah.
And this is the number one thing that I absolutely despised about this movie. The 21-minute long Frozen short that they put at the beginning.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I
god!
heard
So I
people
haven't
were
seen
not liking
Frozen.
that.
I haven't seen Frozen.
So it's
they put a 20-minute short.
21
20
minutes.
minutes.
Wow, that's long.
Yes.
Why?
And okay, so here's the thing with and this is the thing that I look forward to every single Pixar movie is
I miss
that
the chess.
it's like that is their chance to like experiment, and to try something new.
Yeah.
And all the Pixar shorts, a lot of them are just like groundbreaking and beautiful, and they are just wonderful stories. This was absolute garbage. Total and utter garbage. And
Were they
you can
trying to do a new technique with this, or they were just...
No, they just did
No?
a stupid Olaf's adventure and blah blah blah. It's just, and they put 5 songs in it.
That's a lot. That's
5
a lot.
freaking new songs. It's all, and it
Frozen
anyway.
makes them a lot of money, though. I think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is basically just Disney's way of saying, hey, okay, we know you guys got a pretty good movie. Let's just go ahead and shove our short in there.
Yeah.
We were gonna put it on TV, but we decided let's just throw it in front of that.
Yeah.
You know?
as much as I love like Disney supporting stuff like Marvel and Lucasfilm and all that kind of stuff, it does feel like they heavy hand inject themselves a little bit sometimes.
Yes.
And it's first world problem stuff, you know. It's nothing critical, but it does feel a little heavy handed sometimes like that. You're just like, okay, like
yeah, and you know, I don't know. I might not have been so pissed off about it if the same type of stuff hadn't have happened with, you know, the whole EA stuff this past week with Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
So like everyone, if for those who don't know, EA was releasing Battlefront 2 and they were doing this, what was it? So you buy the game for $60 and then you're having to still pay more money if you want to be able to unlock like other characters, and if you pay the money to unlock these characters and get better stats, basically you are unstoppable, you know. So
and basically it's like you can't win the game unless you pay more money or something,
right?
No, it was basically like the thing is that bothered me about all that is that it was randomized loot boxes so you're spending real money on a loot box that is basically a slot machine that might give you what you want, so you don't even know if, so you could be spending like $100, like some Kotaku article guy like spent $100 on the game or something and didn't get anything he wanted. So that's what bothers me. It's like, I don't, cosmetic items for money, sure, do whatever you want, but like don't make it pay to win, you know.
See, and you know, like as much as people want to trash EA for this, like I can almost guarantee you Disney had a very big hand in this, because there's this game that I play called Disney Emoji Blitz. You guys can see here, right?
And keep trying to get me to play it.
Yeah, no, I'm done. I already got the Doug emoji. I don't need your help anymore.
Oh, okay.
I have spent so much time on this dang game trying to unlock emojis, and I have spent a lot of money, unfortunately, trying to unlock these emojis and power them up. And like, you get coins for the more you play, and then you get to buy a gold box or whatever, and then it randomly gives you an emoji, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, this is catered to kids and stuff like this, and it's like, you know, it's the exact same thing that was happening with Battlefront 2, and then, you know, Disney pushing its way into Coco. I was so pissed.
And anyway. It does, in defense of the whole, like, you could theoretically get like Vader and all these things that people were supposed to unlock. You know, you can get those things with actual in-game currency if you worked towards them, but like, I played a little bit of the multiplayer and a little bit of the single player, and it was like you got a few credits, you know. And I think before they brought it down by 75%, it was like over 50,000 or something you needed to unlock these characters just to use them. And the irony there too is that you can only use stuff like Vader or any of those other characters if you do well enough in multiplayer to unlock it. It's like a kill streak in Call of Duty or something. Like, you have to do really well, and then you have a chance to use him once you've unlocked it. So it's not, you can't even just pick Vader from the start. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of, like, imagine spending 80 hours in a game and then only having a chance to play as that character, like, possibly once every, like, 10 rounds or something. So that's where it gets a little bit flaky for me. Otherwise, the game looks gorgeous, but
I mean, I like the idea of being able to, the idea that you can, you know, play a really long time and unlock the same thing you could pay for. You know, like, I'm guilty of that. Like, on GTA, like, I love GTA, but I don't want to spend 80 hours trying to make $1 million. I would gladly pay $40 to get like 80 hours worth of money. You know what I mean? So that I can like unlock the big command center and buy this really cool car and maybe an apartment and start doing some like real hardcore missions instead of just robbing liquor stores all the time, you know, for weeks.
But I will say robbing liquor stores is very fun.
Dude,
it is fun. But
all I can say about that game is they've never lowered the price in its entire release, and and it's just like, if that's not telling of how much money that game's making, probably.
Dude, like, honestly, if they put it down to like $20 or something like that, I bet you they'd get a whole influx of more people, you know, going in and playing.
It always surprised me. I was like, it's been out for years now. Maybe I'll try to pick it up finally. And then I like looked online and I was like, oh, it's still like $59.99.
Yep.
Like,
and you know what's crazy? It's been around for so long that I bought it for Xbox 360. I bought it for Xbox One, and I bought it for PC.
I haven't, and I haven't even played through the full game yet, and I'm a gamer myself, so that's kind of crazy that I still haven't picked it up yet.
Yeah, no, I
It's
only
great.
got to the point in which you could play online. I didn't do
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah, I heard the online's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, Matt and I go in there and rob liquor stores, and I have all this stuff now, so like he
Yeah.
hops in my mobile command center and hops on the gun, and I drive around running over people in my indestructible vehicle, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, I guess.
It's pretty good, I guess. So let's hop over to
so
some
MoGraph.
leads. So MoGraph stuff. We're going to talk a lot today, kind of about this mix of. Gosh, we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff in the whole like Cinema 4D, modeling, character animation, VR, gaming world kind of mixed together here. I think it's something that a lot of our listeners are interested in, and a lot of people are feeling that spillover and entering into some of these realms that maybe they never thought they would enter into.
Yeah, for
before.
sure.
So first of all, I guess, Steve, like give us kind of a rundown, I guess, of your background and what you do for a living.
Yeah, I guess the easiest way to describe it is I'm a 3D concept designer and animator, I guess, sometimes. Less of that these days. But I kind of just dabble in the world of character design. I do a lot of concert visuals for stage shows, so a lot of more abstract kind of things in that light. And then I also am kind of a very early adopter of new tech, so I've been kind of diving into the world of VR lately, and I'm an artist in residence for Google, and I test stuff for Oculus as well, doing kind of both sides of the Vive and the Rift, and doing a lot of art creation with VR tools. So painting immersive paintings or sculpting in virtual reality, and then using those inside of Cinema 4D and all sorts of stuff like that. And that's kind of, as far as projects goes, it bleeds all over to different using those different mediums. I might use VR in one, or I might be designing for VR, or I might be designing something that's just a still image that's then being used for something else. A lot of like look development and kind of concept art these days. But in the world of VR, as well as I've done movie promotions with VR for Doctor Strange and Valerian.
Doctor Strange.
We can talk
I was
about.
watching that one earlier.
Yeah.
Gosh,
And that's early, man. That was really early on VR stuff. So,
the stuff that you're doing, you did in Tilt Brush and Oculus Medium that you have on your site is absolutely killer. Like,
Thanks, man.
I am incredibly jealous of your skills in that, because I get into Medium and I'm like, oh, let's build up a little spot here. Oh, this looks terrible. All right, I'm gonna take my VR goggles off now.
I think the sculpting specifically comes from I'm a long time ZBrush user, and very it's kind of like my it's definitely like my favorite app in a lot of ways. It's C40 and ZBrush are ones I can't live without. Those are two that are just very big in my workflow, and I've been a ZBrush user since it was a drawing app. Technically, it wasn't even fully 3D yet. So and I think a lot of that translates well to Medium, but I will tell you, it's still kind of a new thing to wrap your head around. I'm blessed that I got in early and had a friend that's a VR developer and had me try all this hardware at his house a long time ago. And shout outs to Isaac Cohen. He goes by Kabibo. I just have friends in Oakland that let me kind of get my hands on this stuff, and then I had to have it. So
That's cool.
I first used Medium about a year ago, and I gotta say, like, the first time I used it, I was blown away, and I was like, okay, I really want to spend some time in this and learn all the tools. So I sat down. I didn't stand up for it, but I mean, you can. But
I sit down with Medium more than I do Tilt Brush. I stand up a
Yeah.
little bit more, but Medium is a pretty stationary, kind of in front of you sculpting experience.
Yeah, that's it. Like Tilt Brush, you're kind of you could more like designing these worlds and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of times, and like Medium, I sat down, I got comfortable. Like I had a heater on, like by my feet because it was cold. Like I got everything just perfect,
Yeah.
And I sat down, man. I had my helmet on for 3.5 hours without coming out of it.
No, and
It's
that's
insane.
something I have to. People ask me a lot about VR and like why they like working in it, and that's one of the number one things. I have mad ADD. Like I'm darting all over the place on my computer. Anything that's open, I get distracted by. I'll find myself looking in folders, organizing stuff, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing something else, you know. And so in VR, you're in this singular experience. You know, you have the headset on, and you're kind of really cut off from other distractions, and you can get some solid work done. You know, it's pretty
for sure.
If you don't get distracted in VR and make random stuff, but
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about Medium for me is when I sit down in it, I just kind of go off on a tangent, and I make these like abstract things that are completely stupid, but like. You know, I mean, like a satellite with a big hamburger on top of it last time. I mean, like, it's just like whatever, you know?
It's just something that, I mean, all I can say is that, like, even if the fidelity and quality needs to be, like, tweaked still on the meshes and stuff like that, like, when's the last time you modeled something like that from scratch, like, within the time limit you did it in, you know? Like, I mean, it's what's big to me is that this tool is a teaser of what we're going to get more of, you know? And I think the Medium team is not slowing down anytime soon. They're very aware of other 3D tools out there, and it's really cool to see them trying to figure out what people's weak points are. And it's a very interesting experience. But
you know, I've tried them all a little bit at least. Mostly not tilt brush.
Quill.
Quill.
Yeah.
Quill's the other one by Oculus.
Yeah, I've used Quill, but like I've got to say, and maybe it's just because I spent the most time in it, but I got to say, like I really like the way the tools are laid out in Medium better than anything else.
Yeah, it's a very. They spent a lot of time on the UI, and it shows. You know, I think that's honestly one of the biggest things. Like, there's a couple other VR apps that are like similar sculpting type tools and stuff like that out there, but none of them feel polished. Like, they feel clunky, and you don't feel like you have a good workflow. And a Medium's like got shortcuts kind of that make sense, and they really map the controllers really effectively, and it feels like you can get in this flow. And honestly, with sculpting, that's the biggest importance. Like, if you're not using a tablet and keyboard shortcuts or something with ZBrush, like, you're gonna be done. Like, there's just so many. You can go so much faster, and you get in the zone by mapping a few basic things. And I think that Medium does that really well as well. Yeah.
So, I guess, who have you done concert visuals for?
Yeah, so speaking, you know, one funny thing I talked about earlier about not seeing your stuff in a show. I did stuff for The Weeknd, and that was part of stuff I can't show. But just to give an example of people that want to work in concert visuals, especially if you're working on these big shows, often you're kind of one piece of a team that's kind of creating a bunch of visual content, and often for those kind of clients, you're presenting a whole folder of stuff to a client or their manager or whoever else is involved in that process, and they're kind of going through going, okay, yes, this, and this, get rid of the rest, you know. And so like or they'll tell you to recut something, you know. There's a lot of that kind of stuff when it comes to that, because I was just being subcontracted out, but yeah, and then in your contract, I can't show any of that stuff. But The Weeknd, I did stuff for Future, the rapper. I was involved in the Flying Lotus Hypercube show. I unfortunately couldn't work on the recent 3D version. I was working on Odessa's live show, which is my most recent project. I'm actually building that website out right now on my website to show that work. They finally gave me approval to show it. And we'll get into that in a little bit here, because it kind of segues into some other stuff. But yeah, so my more recent would be Flying Lotus and Odessa. I get asked to do a lot of that stuff. I unfortunately haven't been able to work on them as much recently because I've been so involved in VR projects. So I've had to say no to a number.
Which do you like more, doing the VR stuff or doing the concert visual stuff?
You know what? I as much as I like doing concert visual stuff because it's very creatively free, finding a mix between the two is nice, because I'm trying to scale back my full production animation stuff because I'm a solo freelancer, and when I'm rendering, I mean, I have 3 GPUs in my computer, but it's like it really takes my stuff out of commission, and it's hard to like multitask. I don't have a render farm access. I don't have a second node to render to. I'd like to eventually, but that's why VR stuff has been a little enticing to me, because it really gets me away from being in crazy production mode all the time. But that's why more so I don't mind, like with the Odessa project, a good example is like I was doing one huge section of animation that was like 4.5, 5 minutes of stuff, and that was all solo production. But a lot of it was working with the visual director to be kind of setting up scenes in cinema that had the art direction laid out and kind of just needed to be rendered or needed to be kind of final tweaked on the animation. But it was a lot of that kind of stuff, almost like art directing, but working with an art director, if that makes sense. Like taking his vision and bringing it into a scene, but then letting them kind of do the final touches and let them render it out, because they used Octane as well, the directors. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of that. It's almost like scene consulting or something. I don't know. It's like style frames, a lot of that kind of stuff. And then having them kind of handle the final, finish line stuff. They can deal with their deadlines on the render times and all that stuff. Yeah. But I would say it's split in the middle. The coolest thing about working on concert visuals, I think that any animator should get into, is that you can make literally almost whatever you want most of the time. Like within some very simple constraints. Usually they're like, oh, use these colors, or we want it to have a butterfly or something. I don't
see.
Like,
that's interesting because I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
And I thought when we went up to go work with Deadmau5 and we're just making stuff, it's like, okay, we get to make whatever we want. And I'm like, really? This is 100% creative freedom. We get to do whatever, and it was, I don't know. It's almost weird. It's you almost have a little bit of pressure on you. It's like,
oh, absolutely.
Hey,
you don't know.
Be creative.
Yeah.
I actually have to be creative.
And you actually have to factor in a lot of time of kind of just getting ideas out, because you get some cool stuff, but then the best advice I was ever given about art in general with working with clients was that they never know what they want, but they for sure know what they don't want. And so that's that's a really big thing to pay attention to, because you have to throw stuff that goes way across the spectrum, because you're going to hone in really quickly on what they like and what they don't like. And so
for sure,
usually I'm doing stuff that's pretty safe, and then I'll go into the weird, and then I'll pull it back to an in-between, and so that's a really good tactic. I think it works a lot with concept stuff, especially too, because people just will be like, ooh, no, I don't like what's going on here, and then what to bring it back on. But even simple constraints, if you guys want to, you're talking about this jam thing, the coolest idea is just to set a couple words or something as your baseline, or black and white, or symmetry or something, and those can fuel ideas pretty fast. So I usually try to set myself some ground rules when working on stuff. The Odessa project was easily one of my favorites, because the visual director and the team behind them have such a clear vision of the Odessa brand and what they are, and their music and show, and they have color codes, this song is going to use these colors, and they would have style frame, mix board, mood boards and stuff like that. And ironically, they actually used my art in the mood board for the one I worked on, which is why they ended up talking to me, I think, which is kind of funny.
That's funny. That is funny.
Yeah. But yeah, it really depends. I would say 90% of the shows I've worked on, though, are pretty open. My art direction for Flying Lotus was, I want it to look like he's flying a biomechanical spaceship through a DMT trip. That was what I was told.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I can make some trippy biomechanical spaceship stuff,
Cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what's to jump back a little bit? Where did you go to school for this stuff?
Yeah, my school background's kind of weird. I went to University of Wisconsin.
I think most of us, you could say the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I went to a public university, UWM, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, from the Midwest originally, and my degree is a bachelor's in interdisciplinary arts and technology, which is we were doing stuff like physical computing, creative coding, graphic design, video, animation. We got to be very general with our electives, so I took stuff on After Effects, and at the time it was a lot of Flash, and unfortunately I hated that stuff. And then but I learned
Come
stuff
on, ActionScript 2 forever, yo.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, no. I still shudder thinking about that stuff. But yeah, and I took a class on Maya one semester, which was making me haven't touched Maya since then.
Didn't we all?
And I learned stuff, I took a lot of electives in graphic design, a lot of electives in video and digital video, and I also took a lot of 2D animation, hand drawn. I had a really awesome two awesome professors that were very critical to what I do now, and I think in a lot of ways. Tim Decker, who was worked for Disney for 9 years, worked on 3 seasons of The Simpsons as an animator, and taught me 2D animation. So I learned squash and stretch, all these kind of character specifics that are really important. And then Nathaniel Stern, who's an author and doctor now, I think is Dr. Nathaniel Stern, but he taught stuff. He came from NYU and he taught us stuff like Open Frameworks and MaxMSP and creative coding and video. Taught me all about like video codecs, like the nitty gritty dirty stuff that kind of matters, I guess. But yeah, I was all over the board, and
so
that
do you code as well?
I used to. I don't much anymore, but that's, I think, why my technical edge comes from. Like, I can read code and I can look through it and I can understand it, and I have a knack for being able to communicate with engineers. And at my last full-time job, I did a lot of that. I had to be this liaison because I can communicate with technical people, even if I don't understand the exact nitty-gritty specifics. And so that's the biggest takeaway, is that I think that's why my work was really technical for a while, and how I got into production animation, and I thought that was what I wanted to do more of. But now that I get a little bit solo and I'm freelancing full time, like, I find that I want to get less technical. I want to be more creative, and so it's kind of finding this balance between the two. And I've had to kind of shed a lot of that technical work. Like, I'm very good at that kind of stuff and problem solving, and just never really wanted to do it too much when I'm working as much. Creative problem solving's fun. But,
so you're not? Are you doing? You're not doing any gaming per se, like game programming.
No, but I work with people that are Unity developers or something like that. I can pair up with someone like that and communicate properly what I'm looking to do. But I'm actually kind of looking to do that more right now, and I'm working with a game company right now, a VR game, and so that's all built in Unity. And I'm making content for that, and I'm doing concept art for that. And so it's working with, like, the benefit I have is that I'm a 3D concept artist, so I can draw, but I can also take models and paint over them and give an idea. And then once they hire a modeler or something, I can hand off an actual 3D model to people. And I think that's like where a lot of that industry is going, is because if someone wants it from the other side, or you want a new render, you just turn it around and re-render it, and you can paint something really quickly. And I think that that's a huge advantage, finding someone that's also technical when it comes to the illustration and art stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of why my jobs tend to blur lines a little bit. And it's hard to put a pinpoint of what exactly I do, especially these days. I've been bouncing between a lot of stuff, but the tools stay the same. I guess the output changes.
Yeah.
So we met at CGraph for the first time.
That was my first CGraph. It was amazing.
Ours too?
Yeah, ours too. And it was a lot of fun. We got to talk and geek out about some of this stuff. And I went back today and rewatched your presentation. And like the stuff, talking about stuff that we can't talk about, unfortunately, there are some projects that, like, sometimes are really big and really awesome that you can't show at all, which sucks. But Matt and I in particular were working on one this week, and we were doing animation with the motion system. What's that tag called with the
motion tag?
Is it just the motion tag?
Motion clips.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you've got all these animations and stuff, and then you can just throw them in a row and.
Yeah. So that's the motion mode of the timeline. So that's kind of what that was I did a tutorial series for Cineversity on the topic, but I've been playing with that workflow for about a year or so before I did that, and I kind of did some test runs. For people that don't know, it's basically a simple way in Cinema 4D to blend multiple motion capture sources together in a timeline, but basically treat it like a nonlinear editor where you have clips and you can cut them up and you can drag them out, and I think I've never
slow them down and speed them up.
I've never been a big, like, keyframe timeline curve editor kind of guy. I'm not very good with that stuff, and when I found this system, I was like, holy crap, this is what I've always wanted, and I mean, it's character specific, but I do a lot of that. But and I had to do a pretty condensed version at CGraph, but that started because I did the C40 Roadshow in San Francisco. Matthias had me come out and do that for Maxon, and it was kind of a dry run. He was like, hey, like, just show some stuff you're working on and whatever you want to talk about. And I was like, I've been playing with this weird workflow. Maybe I'll show it off. And I showed it to maybe like the 40, 50 people that are there, but it was like, I had a lot of questions, and a lot of people,
Cool.
even Matthias, who works at Maxon, was completely unaware of this workflow and wanted to do it himself on his own project. He was like, I'm using these tools already. Like, how did I not know this was there? Like, and I felt like I was onto something in that sense. And then I remember they kind of reached out about Cineversity stuff and just pegging my interest on it. And I pitched this workflow to them, and they immediately asked me to work on it. So
it's such an interesting system. Like it's so cool.
Yeah,
Like,
and Mixamo is only one part of the equation. You know, it's really just the system of tools that you can learn from it, which is really awesome. Yeah.
So, you said you do a lot of drawing and stuff, and on your website you've got a whole bunch of character stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so do you do a lot of character and rigging and stuff like that?
Yeah, the rigging stuff, not beyond basic joint skeleton movement stuff for maybe some concert visuals, or I use Mixamo now for a lot of the auto rigging stuff. But I work with technical modelers and riggers and stuff like that with models, because I sculpt high res models in ZBrush, and I know the workflow to get it down to like Substance Painter and stuff like that. I'm not as fast at the full pipeline. What I'm fast at is coming up with high res characters and painting over them and selling an idea, and that's what I'm doing right now for a VR game. And I've done that stuff, and I'll touch on the Odessa stuff, because this whole technique was used heavily on this show, and that involved a character as well. For anyone that didn't see the live show, they just did a big tour, and it was there's this king they wanted. It's a song where it's a unique to the live show song that's not on any of their albums, and it's very heavy and big and has all these kind of big drums in it, and they wanted something special for it, and they kind of pitched this idea of this giant king in this forest standing up and walking around, and it's really simple, but I had to sculpt something and animate it, and it was just basic walk cycles and blending standing up to sitting down animations and stuff like that. All use that technique, and what I really try to show in that technique is that you can use this to make convincible, believable animation that people think you actually animated it, like, traditionally. And I have a lot of people that don't even know I was using Mixamo in a lot of ways. So I mean, it's kind of like faking it in a lot of ways, but I think I'm not trying to sell myself as a technical rigger or animator.
Not really. I mean, the Imaginary Forces guys, for the South by Southwest stuff, they were using Mixamo just to start off, and ended up using a lot of it.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this workflow that I show is there's ways to manipulate it after the fact, So like one thing I talk about in the tutorial that I don't really show too much, I don't know, I think I included at the end of my Seagraph talk, but there's a hierarchy that is kind of hidden when you have something baked as a motion clip, and it goes through your whole rig, and you can actually uncheck certain things you don't want to be affected. So you can say like have a walk cycle, but then you can uncheck the arms and completely manually pose the arms using the built-in rig, and you could have it carrying something, and then he's going to still walk cycle and blend between animations, but his arms are just going to stay how you manually keyframed them. And I think that stuff like that opens up crazy doors for people, because how hard it is to do a walk cycle? Like,
oh yeah.
I mean,
well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah,
like if there's no reason to use the old tools, why use them?
Well, there is.
If you don't have to.
It really depends on what you're trying to do, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's like I still have to recommend rigging people all the time, because it's like, this isn't a rig where you can have IK chains where you can grab a foot and it bends the whole leg with it. Like, that's the real power of rigging. But if you're just trying to sell something to a client, or you just need some really basic stuff, like, why break your brain over trying to learn this really, really technical process when you can get a lot of stuff? And the cool thing is that the reason I say Mixamo's only one half of the equation is because I was talking to people at Seagraph, like Rococo, those guys that make their own MoGraph suits and can do it in your house. And sure, they have a lot of ways to go with a lot of that stuff, but imagine using a Kinect and a home suit in the near future. I mean, Kinect I think just got shut down actually, unfortunately. But I have a Kinect 2 sitting here collecting dust that I should use something with. But the idea of I can go behind me and use
the open source rig that Sage did that he posted, where you can do it with a Vive or an Oculus Rift.
Yeah, and I heard about that too. And the idea that I think home solutions for motion capture is going to become a lot more prevalent, especially with VR and all these new mediums of interactivity. And I think that once I can turn around and put a couple bands on my arms and head and stuff and track my body, this whole workflow is exactly usable for that too. And that's my end goal. Mixamo is just, the reason I like Mixamo is because A, it's going to auto rig something for you, and B, which is, to my knowledge, besides Maya, the only tool in the world right now that there's like a couple like free like ones that kind of do it that are kind of ghetto and old, but Mixamo is like the most approachable and easy to use for just rigging something automatically. But you also get a huge database of really clean motion capture data. And that, and there's people that have tons of BHIP files out there that you can get yourself. Which is, it's, I mean, most people are going to see Mixamo and they think of the dancing stuff, right? Like the furry dancey bodies. And it
that's what everybody's doing.
You might hear my snark a little bit in my Seagraph talk, trying to prevent that happening a little bit, but I don't mind that stuff because it can still look cool. It's just really, the technique was really to try to show people to break out of that stereotype and kind of realize that they can use it as a set of really unique tools and not even let people know they're using it. And I think that's what's really cool. Like, it's really cool to see people like Kid Mograph like post loops that are using that technique now, and like it's just really cool to see anyone make anything using the same technique. Every time I see Motion System now, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, and it just wasn't really talked about in the C40 community much, and people knew about it. Like, motion clips are nothing new. It's just the fact of like kind of pairing those all together makes a really good editing tool.
Yeah,
that's what we did with this project we were working on this week. Is we purchased a model and it already had these presets, and it's just like, okay, speed up, slow down, mix it with this other one, and it's like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, and you can, and especially when it pretty much works with any FBX baking data. Like, you can do that with anything that's got animation data. You can just bake it down to a motion clip, and then you have the ability to. I even like doing it now just for basic animations. Like, I'll bake something down and then I have it on the timeline where I can slow it down or speed it up just by dragging the clip length. And for anyone that's trying to like follow along to that, like, you can watch my talk on YouTube for free or watch Cineversity to get specifics, but it's really just dragging and dropping it and stretching it like you would on a Premiere or something, it's just a timeline clip.
Yep, absolutely.
And you can cut and you can reverse and you can stitch together. I
was really worried when we got this project about like having to do some of this character stuff. But the second I discovered that, I was like, holy cow, this is like
that was the least of our worries.
Basically like Premiere, And so like at one point I'm wanting to cut to a certain part in the animation. I'm like, man, I don't see any blade or cut tools. Let me just right click and see if you can split the clip. Sure enough.
I will say that right click, I wish there was like a shortcut or something for that. I think I could map one, but like you do have to like right click and then right click again to unselect cut tool or something.
Yeah, that is annoying.
That's a little clunky, but that's it's very first world problem. It's nothing crazy. It's not workflow breaking, but I mean, when I did the same thing, I was like, wait, I can cut this, and that whole workflow is just discovery, man. I was very excited, and I should have seen me. I was home alone just yelling, dancing around my house when I figured out certain things. I was like, the first time I blended something together and had it like walk forward but then repeat itself and do another run cycle like twice in a row and blended it seamlessly, like I was just like, okay, it's on now. Like I know what to do now, because that was my biggest beef. Was I was setting up cameras, and this was before takes were out even, I think. I was like setting up multiple scenes just to get like, I need to pan the camera this way, and I would do like one camera and render that and then open the whole scene in a new thing and like have a new camera rendering something else with a different animation, and it was just like, it was tiresome. And so it became very fast and efficient workflow, and now it's pretty much standard. I even use it for posing. I don't know if people do a lot of stills, but like, you can also use Mixamo if you have a model to get a really awesome pose, and you get a rig to pose it. So if you're not using DAZ or anything else like that, and you have a model, like even an Adobe Fuse model, like you can get a rig on it, and then they even have poses that are still inside of Mixamo that aren't animated, and you can take one of those, and then if you get it close, and then you can come in with that rig and actually just bend and move the joints themselves. And I do that for characters all the time for renders and paintovers, and you don't have to use it for animation. It can be really helpful for finding a still you like as well.
So when you're talking about these paint overs? I've heard you mention this a couple of times. No, and it's something that I'm unfamiliar with. So is it something where you're bringing in models into VR and painting over them and say tilt brush or something, or are you just getting these models and then like redoing your own models in C40?
What I mean by that is kind of more in the, I guess that's more in the concept community, I guess, more so than the motion graphic stuff, but really it's just referring to rendering a still and putting it into Photoshop and painting on top of it for further, because not everything needs to be done. Like if you need some emissive glows on something, like I can paint that stuff in Photoshop as fast as I can try to mess with something in rendering engine sometimes. You can get a basic something like that, but you can get it like sometimes 50 to 80% there in 3D and then just render something out quick and dirty. And as long as I have material ID passes for masking and stuff like that, like you can do a lot in Photoshop after the fact. Because a lot of what I'm getting hired for now is still images, like key art, like style frames, concept stuff.
I'd love to see your workflow in that.
And I'm trying to
all the post work. That would be cool.
I have a lot of requests for it right now, and for characters, it's honestly, it really differs. It's not always C40 and Octane. It is surprisingly sometimes Keyshot and just ZBrush in Photoshop, because if people aren't aware, I didn't really use Keyshot that much until they made the bridge for ZBrush, which allows you to literally just hit Shift R inside of the app, and you can send over your entire model, even if it's like 20 million polygons, to Keyshot, and it live updates. And you can just like pose something and drag textures onto it and see how the light hits it, and then go back to ZBrush and change something, hit Shift R again, and within like 30 seconds it's already in Keyshot again. And you can do that with like poly paint data that's vertex color painted on a crazy mesh that's not even topologized properly. Like you can be quick and dirty with it. So sometimes I just do that. Otherwise, I decimate stuff down out of ZBrush and bring it into C40 and Octane. And that's when I want to do more full scenes, usually.
I was going to ask you that, too, about Medium. Is there a way now to... Because when I first did an export, I don't know if you remember, when it first came out, it was really hard to export, and it was like super high poly.
Basic. Yeah, it was basic. They've definitely made some really nice changes to the updater, or to the exporter. It now has like the option for UVs or normal maps, basic ones that get sped out. I'll tell you right now, don't get your hopes up. They're not amazing, but they do work. They are basic. I've seen a couple people on the Oculus Medium, like VR paint sculpting groups on Facebook and stuff, post stuff that they put into Substance Painter with very little cleanup. It's just going to have messy UVs and seams and stuff like that. But you can also decimate now and export, so you can choose to... You have a slider, or they have presets of like 90, 20%, you know, like these kind of things. Honestly, since I'm a ZBrush user, I kind of export it and then bring it into ZBrush and do some, like, if anyone's really into the specifics, I bring it in and it brings in all my layers as subtools, and I'll just subdivide a few times. I'll weld points and I'll subdivide a few points a few times, and then I'll Dynamesh that, which is something in ZBrush, which is basically redrawing all the polygons to merge stuff together. So that all that does for me is that you could do this in like Mesh Mixer or something. All it's doing is closing holes, like smoothing out any kind of like weird, like fractalized geometry. If something's overlapping all weird and it like didn't decimate right or something, you know, you'll kind of like override all that stuff, and then I'll decimate that mesh down, and then it's like a lot cleaner for me. I've talked about that workflow with the Medium team, so they're aware that they need to make that a little bit better on export. But I'm just one of those people I'm never one app person. Like nothing's done.
Do you then go through and re-topologize, or are you just working with it straight the way it is?
Most of them I'm just decimating to triangles and cubic mapping stuff, unless I'm trying to like... I've done a few characters where I've done that, but most of the time I'm not trying to like... I'm trying to use it as a sketching tool in a lot of ways, so I'm trying to see what I can get away with by being really quick and dirty with it, because I don't see Medium ever being this like ZBrush end-all be-all replacement, and I don't think they want it to be that. I think it supplements a really awesome thing in the 3D world, which is quick and easy creation and sculpting, like stuff that would normally be really hard to do in a traditional 3D package. And while that might not be perfectly clean meshes right now, if you want to take it farther than that, you totally can. And I have a lot of friends that don't do 3D, and including my brother, who's now a Medium user and like is posting stuff. I showed him how to use Keyshot, and he's like posting like Medium sculpts that are really weird on his Instagram, like really weird.
Okay, tell me a bit about Keyshot. I'm
Yeah.
like looking at it online, and
It's like a product rendering tool, to be honest with you.
I was gonna say they make it look
yeah.
really easy.
It is, and I will tell you right now, it is hands down the easiest rendering engine I've ever used in my entire life. Like it's all drag and drop. It's all very, it's product focused, so it kind of has a look to it. But if you look up stuff like Mark Chang has been posting some stuff using it recently, and you can get some really impressive results with it because you can load your own maps. It has a node editor now if you want to get dirty with that stuff, with combining textures and things like that. But for me, what I like it is because I have a version of it called Keyshot for ZBrush, which is kind of confusing, but it's just a discounted version because you have to have ZBrush to be able to use it, and it just sends it's the full version, but it sends your models directly as a link, a dynamic link, and it works, man. It's really stable. It's really fast. It is CPU based though, so I will tell you that that's a little bit of a bummer. They don't seem to think GPU is the future. They're very sold on the CPU stuff, which is not a big deal because I'm never rendering animation out of it. I'm just doing stills. Right. So, like my fans kick in pretty hard on that one because I have like an i7 6900K, and it's just like it's great, but it doesn't push very hard for GPU stuff. You know, it's just kind of sitting there, but. Yeah, it's drag and drop textures. It comes with a huge library of textures built in that you can manipulate. You can, a really cool trick if anyone's using it and is totally new to it, something that took me forever to learn about that is you can actually, if you send something from ZBrush with like polypaint data on it, like let's say it's a DAZ model with skin, right? You can actually take like the translucent human skin material in Keyshot, and if you hold Alt while you're dragging it onto the mesh, it will combine it with the other current polypaint data. So it's going to make your painted human from DAZ in some way have translucent skin with SSS in it that you can control, because it's like blending those two textures together. So it's like
that's pretty cool.
Instead of setting up this really complex node, you can just hold Alt and like drag it on there, you know, which is really nice. But it has a look to it, you know, and it's not and it has animation, but it's really mostly for like turnarounds and fly and like really basic fly throughs, I think, because it's like it's mostly used for product rendering. You'll see a lot of like jewelry and like cars. It's big for cars. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's all just, for me, it's all about like what doesn't hinder my workflow. And it's always been Keyshot and Octane are the two that are really fast and really can kind of dive in and start playing around with stuff. I want to try Redshift. I downloaded the demo. I haven't really played with it yet, but it looks it's just like relearning something new, which is a little tricky for me. But
you like nodes.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I'm really not a node person. I know basic stuff in both Keyshot and Octane, but I'm just not a power user. And since I'm moving away from a lot of production stuff, I can tell you I hit a lot of walls with Octane and Odessa's project. There's no doubt about that.
I think Octane hit a lot of walls with.
But for but for me, it's like I'm just usually trying to go for quick and nice lighting stuff that I can fix later on in post or something, or use it to get to a certain extent, to a certain level. And Octane I've just been using for a while now that I'm familiar and comfortable with it, and I still find it really fast for what I kind of do. But obviously it has its shortcomings for some stuff.
What were the walls? Like, were you hitting polygon?
Yeah,
walls,
polygon
like
limit, like stuff
count?
like stuff like not, you know, like where you have I was using Forester for the first time on a big project, and it was like running into like how stuff is cloned and instances of stuff not animating certain things, you know, finding like this complex chain of a scene where it was like hitting a wall on polycount or something, but you don't really know what's doing that. Or I was running into issues where I was just running into like a weird bug or error. And my biggest beef with Octane, it's not that the software has limitations, it's the fact that there's no documentation on almost anything. You're like, like you're going to find like the infro thrill guy or whatever like that. Like there's a few people that have, and like David, and like there's some really awesome people that put out resources on it, but there's just no like right click show help, you know, like there's that was my biggest beef, is I feel like for a professional app, you need documentation, and that seems really minuscule to people that are like, you know, RTFM, you know, like no one wants to read the manual. But it's when you're on a deadline and you got someone paying you and you hit some weird error and you post on the forums and get kind of a defensive answer from the developer, you know, it's kind of like you don't really know what to do. You're like, well, I'm going to post in this Facebook group and probably get ridiculed or something. But it's like, it's that's my biggest beef, is like I don't have the answers for everything when I run into a problem, and that was my biggest feedback for them. Otherwise, I think it's a really amazing product, but there's a lot of specific production technical walls that I've heard Chad Ashley talk to me about and stuff that I wasn't even aware of. But and you know, a lot of people don't know the whole unbiased versus biased thing, like hiding lights. And I don't mind that as much. I'm getting pretty creative at hiding my lights in the scene, you know. But
Well, there's we got tons of tutorials on Redshift now. If you do want to get into it with your demo.
Yeah.
You know,
the demo I think is full-fledged. It just has a watermark on stuff, so I'm going to try to play around with it and see what the speed difference is, but I
mean, there's a lot to it. I think, you know, pretty soon we're going to have Barton come on the show and talk about his impressions of it, because he's been using it for a while now. And, you know, instead of Octane or in conjunction with Octane, to really talk about how either a one-man shop or a small boutique, you know, handles Redshift. It's really something that's worth it. You know, I think Chad's thing is he comes from this big, you know, like production workflow type company.
Absolutely. And, Digital Kitchen is huge, and like that's what he was doing before, and
so that's kind of the thing with the way he looks at it. It's like, you know, for this large scale stuff, like Redshift really is a good option.
Well, it's why like Arnold is still the standard in all these big studios, because it's like people are like, oh, that's great, but we can't throw all this stuff at it with our custom scripts and everything. You know, it's like but I mean, I will say that, I always take that kind of feedback from people on rendering engines with a grain of salt, because each person has their own individual uses for something. Most people would say Keyshot's a joke or something, but it's like I get tons of work using it, so it's like it's not.
Man, it's all about the project, and this is what I've said. You know,
exactly.
I used to be a render engine snob. I used to be Octane. You know,
whatever best suits it, man.
Yeah, whatever best suits your needs.
Yeah, so like right now I'm doing a lot of characters in Keyshot and ZBrush because I don't need the polish that I do I don't need photoreal stuff or anything that's like super on that level. I just need basic stuff with some masks I can mask over, and that's why like I'll use Keyshot for something really quick like that. But if someone wants a scene or visuals or something, I'm going right into Cinema and Octane because it's just better for that, you know. One thing that Redshift was really enticing was like I saw someone do some like that this guy I worked on with a project more recently, Lee Soder, who's awesome hard surface dude. I worked on him with this Symbio Robotics look dev project I was on, but he just got Redshift and has been playing around with it, and he's pretty new to it, but man, his like second render had like fog, God ray emissive stuff coming through the ceiling, and I was just like, okay, now I'm angry because I want to see that, and I want to do, like, it was just like that. Like I saw that one thing, and he's like, "Oh, it's like my second render with it," and I was like, "Okay, now you got my attention." Like,
and that's the biggest thing. Subsurface scattering and fog are the two fastest things in Redshift. Like they absolutely destroy Octane.
Yeah. And I will say that my other beef with Octane right now is I'm a big Substance Painter user, and I think that the Substance workflow in Octane is one of the most confusing things I've ever done in my entire life. I think like to get it correct, like there's that screenshot on the forum somebody made of the node tree, and I've done that and it works for the most part, but it never looks one-to-one. And I know that they're trying to make that better or something, but like I heard in Redshift, it's just like, here's your albedo slot, here's your like here you can just dump your maps into it natively and it's going to work pretty one-to-one, which physical based shaders are definitely the future and kind of where that's all going, and it's a little tricky to get my stuff to look exactly how it does in the iRay renderer and Substance to
the OSL stuff is going to change that, I think.
Yeah, and I've been holding back on talking about it a little bit, but I do think the stuff that does entice me about Octane is seeing more of this Unity integration and kind of the stuff they're doing with game engines, and I know that that's not enticing to people in the motion graphics community.
Yeah, it's really not.
But I thought we could talk about it a little bit, because I could say that there is a lot of drive and desire from clients to do more immersive stuff. And if Unity is definitely approachable, so is Unreal. But the idea of something like Octane inside of Unity with actual light baking and stuff like that, once it gets integrated, is going to be like really big, because you can drop fog in and affect it in real time. And like that kind of stuff is really, anytime someone sees something that's done in Unity, like the Atom demo, like if you had told me that was done in Unity and like didn't tell me, I would have just been like, no way, like that's Octane and some other stuff or something, you know. It's just, there are some people doing some really crazy boundary pushing stuff with game engines. And look at, I don't know if you guys know who Kajiro Takahashi is. He's like the Unity Japan lead developer. Anyone in the Unity world knows this guy. He's like the Jesus of the Unity community. But he builds like a VJing tool and live concert visual tool with Unity. He's built his own scripts. He has all of it on GitHub, and you can take these individual tools, and he even has the open source for his whole entire tool. And he's constantly putting stuff out that you would see done in cinema, like breaking a mesh into pieces and warping it into another one, or like a tunnel cloner effect, you know, like he's building effects that you would see in motion design, but for game engines. And obviously it's not that easy to integrate that, but I just think that there's a lot of blend and crossover between the two. Like you can open C40 file scenes inside of Unity, which I don't think a lot of people know. You can just open a C40 file and it will,
That's awesome.
obviously you're gonna have to tweak stuff, but
Right.
That's kind of where I'm working at now when it comes to Unity stuff. I'll set up scenes and that I can hand off to someone and they can bring it into Unity. And if they're a developer and they already have a scene set up, they can drag textures onto it and shaders and all the kind of coding stuff and interaction I don't know how to do. Yeah. So I just think that like, if you look at what like Oats Studio, which is Neil Blomkamp's new company, like they're doing another sequel to the Atom demo in Unity, and it's cinematic. It feels like a movie, and it's done in real time. And what's exciting about that is that it's easy to take that and adapt it to VR if they wanted. You're not locked into a pre-rendered video that you're trying to fit into a 360 experience or something or anything like that. But there is a lot of, I mark my words, I think there's gonna be a lot more cinematic game engine type things coming out, and I think that people like motion designers are going to have a really easy segue there, to be honest with you.
I'll agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that everyone's going to want to do that, and that's fine. There's always going to be a place for all the other industries separated, but people that are kind of blurring this line right now, diving into the more technical side of motion graphics, I think won't have very much of a problem picking up something like Unity and integrating the two and animating something in cinema and bringing it into Unity to do it in real time or something. Yeah, I think it's personally what I've been interested in. It's hard to dive into new software, especially game engines. I think Dave and I talked about this a little bit at SeaGraph about how it's a little intimidating because you're used to this Octane stuff and making it look really clean really quickly, and trying to get that to look like that in Unity, you know, takes a little bit of plugins and some extras and fine tweaking. But man, when I saw that there's something called the post-processing stack in Unity, and it's a third-party app, and it's got bloom, fog, color correction, some basic stuff in it, right? And you just drop that into any scene. And when you drag a slider and make real-time fog feedback in your viewfinder, you're just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, you're like, it's like playing with a real-time depth pass slider and just having it like affect your scene in real time, and just like drop a light in there, and it's like, if you knew what you were doing, it's like you can make that light have interaction and all sorts of stuff, you know. And it's like when you see these things like that, and I think Dave said something to me about Unreal that was really exciting, is about how like there's presets to like drop when your foot hits the ground on a model that it will like make dust kick up or something, you know. And it's like those kind of things, like trying to do that in C4D would take me a long time of figuring it out. I'm sure others are faster, but
X particles.
Yeah, exactly. And then you'd have to figure out how to emit stuff on impact with X particles, and then my head hurts, and you know, it's like
Yeah, I love the character animation tool in Unreal is pretty cool. You know, and that's because, you know, you can do that. You have your walk cycle, and it's very much like a Mixamo type thing. You know, you bring in your FBX, and then you just add these different cycles that you can download to it. And but yeah, you could say, okay, every time the foot hits the ground, kick up dust and do a footstep sound, and it's like so easy.
And honestly, you can use Mixamo is a great tool for game engines as well, and the workflow with the whole like blending motion clips and stuff can translate to Unity really well. My friend Robbie Tilton, who there's a meetup in San Francisco that we were doing a little while that was like kind of bridging like VR with 3D artists a little bit. So we had a couple demos and talks, and I kicked it off, and then my friend Robbie did the second one, and he talked about using Unity more, but from a C40 background, and he talked about like showing how you can just like load, here's like when it triggers this, like it's gonna walk forward, and it just loops an FBX animation that you load into it, and then you can tell it when it hits this part of the timeline, like trigger this animation. And it's the same concept, but you know, I asked him, I was like, how hard is that to map that to a game controller? And he's like, it'd be easy. It'd be really easy. So you could take something from Mixamo, a run animation, and have it mapped to the pushing forward on a joystick on a controller. you can then have the when you push back on the joystick, trigger a walking back animation from Mixamo. Super Hot
Right.
VR done entirely with Mixamo animations.
Really?
It's one of their only case studies on their website. It's hilarious. It's the only. It's
Really?
like one of
I
the
didn't
only
know that.
games. If you go on like Mixamo's like, I think they changed the webpage, but it's one of their only case studies because like the game was done with those animations. Like, so it's like you can trigger stuff that you get from Mixamo in a game engine, you know, and it's got my brain going all sorts of places because I'm a gamer and I love video games, and to be able to like, I don't want to make a full game solo, but to be able to prototype something or have a character you created and brought into C40 and then brought it into Unity and we're able to control it with a controller, like that's really exciting to me.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you just from, I can't say specifics, but I know people have approached me recently about projects that are in Unity. You know, they want someone that has like the cinematic eye of a 3D artist and a motion graphics person that can do these kind of epic things, but they want it in a real-time environment. So I think that there's a lot of demand out there for that in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put the link to that Atom demo in the show notes.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I've seen it before. Like I'm watching it again now. I remember watching this when it came out.
Yeah. They host all those files, by the way. They're open source. You can even get the crazy rig for that one with multiple arms. And they're like, they even give you a warning. They're like, this is a very complex rig. Like, but they open source that whole thing. Shout outs to Unity. Like they're really great. And they now handed it off to Neil Blomkamp's company, Oats, and like they're continuing the story and they're doing like actual like CGI movie, like mini shorts, you know, like 15, 20 minute things. But
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. I gotta just say, the stuff this Oat Studio, if you guys haven't paid attention to it at all, it's Neil Blomkamp started a tiny company. He's the guy who did Chappie and District 9.
Yeah.
All these big
Yeah.
movies. But he started his own production studio with like a small group of people, and it's basically putting out 20-minute short movies or CG experiments that could be full movies. Like any one of these could be picked up by a movie studio and turned into something. The first one's got Sigourney Weaver in it. It's they're very intense. They're pretty violent. They're more on the horror sci-fi side of things. But it's crazy that people are able to, I mean, talk about like ditching movie studios and doing, you wouldn't expect a big time director to like kind of subvert the movie studios and do their own thing. And I think that's kind of what people are doing with motion graphics too. You know, you don't need this huge studio. You can hire a couple people.
I'm actually watching this now.
Yeah. I mean, you
Like-
see it and you're like, there's no way this is all real time. Like this is done. That's 100% in Unity. Like there's no,
Yeah.
Wow.
like
You
they
download
have
the
whole-
source, you could stop
Yep.
and pause and move around the scene.
Oh yeah.
And
When I opened it up in my computer, I was just like, okay, this is, I mean, obviously there's some color correction probably put in there. But like the fact that all that stuff is in real time. I mean, that's the tricky part, is to get stuff optimized for real time is a little tricky, like getting models and stuff working that way. But you can be pretty quick and dirty if you're not in like some ILM production environment or something, you know, like some crazy, like rigorous pipeline. You can be kind of quick and dirty with it.
Jeez. Even had the tearing of the cloth and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
that blew me away. Like I don't. Yeah, that's the stuff that you see as a motion designer, and you're like, you cringe. You're like, how would you do that? Like cloth dynamics, like soft bodies, like. all
yeah,
that-
when you're like, I don't even know how to do that not in real time.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I would have a hard time doing that. I would have to do some Marvelous Designer simulation or something. But
Yeah.
that's another tool I love too, is Marvelous Designer, which I'm seeing a lot more people pick up now, which is really cool.
I haven't used it, but all the stuff that I've seen, I watched. What was it? Cornelius Damrick.
Oh yeah, he uses it. Yeah.
Yeah, his whole breakdown and stuff. I was watching him use it. That's the first time I've seen it
Yeah.
be used.
Yeah, I used to work for a clothing company as a senior web producer before I was doing freelance full time, and I learned about pattern making for clothes and how you actually can, like, you know, sew patterns together. So my knowledge is, I have a little bit of a leg up there because I kind of worked with a lot of tech designers that actually make clothing patterns. But it's really fun. It's addicting.
Yeah.
If you're scared of cloth simulations and other apps, it's pretty liberating because you can get some pretty cool stuff in that app very
Gosh,
quickly.
This is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and if you
Like-
and if you're looking at the Unity site, like after this, you can check out Oates' first one. They already did a first Atom sequel to a direct sequel to this little short, and it's only like 15 minutes or something. And they just released the third teaser because they're going to come out with part 3 soon. So, but yeah, it's like they show that at SIGGRAPH, like Unreal obviously is like AAA games are made in Unreal, so like that's going to look good. I think really the difference between Unity and Unreal is like really how you want to program stuff, like the blueprints versus like how Unity tackles stuff.
But there's something that is very similar to Blueprint that's a third party.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. But it's what everyone uses in my from what I understand. The cool thing about what really entices me, I think Unity's probably announced something like this. I don't know if they did or not, but the thing Unreal has where you can put a headset on and you can actually take assets you have in VR and like place them inside the headset and like kind of build worlds in VR with stuff you've built in Unreal. I think that requires a crazy library of assets already optimized, which is something I don't have. But imagine using like stuff like I think like Megascans, Quixel stuff or something. Like taking those and getting the small LOD versions of them with high res textures and normal maps, and then having a whole library of rocks and stuff, and being able to just drop them into a scene in Unreal with a headset on and build around you. Like that's the kind of integration I want to see.
Walls and stuff too. You can draw like you can build rooms and all of that.
So you can just take a wall panel and just draw it out. It feels like The Sims or something. You're just drawing walls out and building stuff. Yeah. And honestly, that's what it seems so simple. And I'm sure these big game engines have to cater to so many people because like AAA games are made with them, indie games are made with them. Like people are experimenting. But I just want to be able to build scenes in VR. Like it's when you can stand in the middle of a scene and look around from all angles, it's liberating.
It is.
It's what I talk about with character design and why I like using tilt brush or medium is when you scale a monster or creature you design, it's to eye level and you're looking at it, you can start to see real connection there. And you kind of you approach it differently, I think, compared to just seeing it on a screen. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize this video goes up to 1440.
Oh yeah,
and like because I was on 720, and oh my god, like it like totally just blew my mind.
Yeah, when they go outside, it's like okay, all the grass, all the stuff, and I don't think I'm gonna be making anything that looks that good anytime soon. But that demo really was like, I think that demo is gonna be a turning point for a lot of people in this industry. I think we're gonna look back at that demo in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's still what they tote a lot as like, hey, this is what Unity can do, and anytime anyone has a naysayer thing about Unity, I'm just like, okay, look at this demo. You can't deny it. I mean, sure, it took some plugins and some work, but that's another cool thing too, is that Unity has a huge marketplace and asset library, and most of them are really cheap or free. Like if you want a toon render, there's like, if you search that on the marketplace, there's like 20 different people that made line toon renderers or something, and it's like, That's cool to me. I like stuff where that's why C40 is amazing, right? The community is amazing. Like everyone shares knowledge. There's tons of resources. There's tons of tutorials. Like you never feel lost really. Even the company themselves, Maxon, is super approachable and super friendly. Yeah. And it's it's hard to find that in other industries. And I think Unity has a pretty massive community as well. So it's a little less intimidating to dive in. I think Unreal tends to lean towards gaming studios and stuff like that, so you kind of don't get as many individuals doing a lot of like asset sharing and stuff, but it does have a lot of huge community as well. So I lean more towards Unity because of its friendliness and kind of open approach, I guess.
For sure.
But yeah, nerding out on game engines.
So tell us, what are your favorite VR games then?
It's funny. I actually don't play that many games. I have hundreds of hours in art apps, and I only play a few hours of some games. But I got to shout out one of my favorite games is done by my friend actually. Functronic Labs did this game called why am I not remembering it? Holy crap! I'm thinking of Nova 111, which is their last game they made, and I'm freaking out now because I can't remember the name of it. Oh my God, Eddie, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of your game. I'm loading Steam. Okay, I'm trying. Cosmic Trip. God, why did I think so long about that? Cosmic Trip. So it's basically like an RTS tower defense type game in VR for the Vive, and I think it's on Rift now too. Okay. Easily one of the most polished VR games I've played, and essentially you're on a planet when you start off, and it's got like a little friendly robot that follows you around, and you basically have to take discs you find, and then you off your command and you pay in-game currency to like build a disc will build you a robot, and you can take that bot and you can build a laser one or a healing one, or eventually you unlock different ones, but you have to have like batteries to load these discs into, so you have to power up like a device that then lets you make the bots. And then every like on a timer, there's waves of enemies that come after you, so you have to like prepare within a minute or two, and then all of a sudden enemies come after you and you're gathering resources. But what they just changed recently is you can now zoom out like on the map, and it's like a top down, like you're looking at like an RTS game.
It's
almost.
so funny. You're explaining this stuff, and I swear you're actually watching the video as you're.
I'm not. Yeah, it's like I'm not at all. But I'm a big fan. Like I mean, I'm a little biased because some friends worked on it and made it, but it's been early on in the Vive world, and it was one of the first games that actually gripped me, and I was like, okay, this is really fun. It's got a great soundtrack. Everything feels really polished. It's hard to find VR games that are really polished.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really excited. I'm about to buy Lone Echo by Ready at Dawn, which is on, which I know people like Ash Thorpe did UI design for that and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's some really cool games out there I want to try. Robo Recall is really polished on Rift.
Oh, it's so good,
that's the best.
too.
That is the best.
I can't play it anymore in my house or let people play it because my controllers keep getting smashed on the desk because people are like getting really a little too intense with it. But that game is really polished. Even if you're not into shooters, it's worth playing just to see how a good polished VR game is.
And it's all Substance Designer, Substance Painter too, I believe.
Yep,
so
it was all built in Substance. And I love seeing games that are done in tools I use because it really makes you step your game up. Like when I was playing Uncharted 4 and they're like, oh, this was all done in Substance Painter. I was like, I was like, okay, like now I feel like worthless, you know? But I they do these highlights of games that used tools that I use and you're like blown away by it. Yeah, ZBrush, I get that every day. I open the app because every movie and game in the world is made with ZBrush. But it's like, I just think that Cosmic Trip stands out. Robo Recall stands out. There's a lot of really cool non-game games out there. Like my friend Isaac makes a lot of these weird $1 to $2 experiments. Like there's stuff like Blarp he made, which is, I think, in a Vive interview. Who's the guy who runs Steam and Valve again or whatever?
Gavin.
Yeah.
But like basically like the head of Steam like said it was like one of his favorite games and stuff like that, and it's called Blarp. It's very weird. It's basically like 3D Snake in a room. You're basically in a room with a ball, and it starts bouncing, and there's a ball in the corner you have to hit that ball into, and you pull the trigger, and the ball will slowly orbit your hand. But if you pull the trigger too close and the ball touches your hand, it resets the whole game. So you're basically like spinning almost like a lasso with a ball rolling around it, and you throw it at the other ball. But the second it hits that ball, it splits into 2, and splits into 3, and then splits into 4, and you try to keep as many as you're going. And later on, as you do it, the room you're in gets bigger. So like you start off in a really small space with one ball, and then as you're doing it, you're corralling like eventually like 30 to 50 of these balls, trying to throw them in one direction. But if any of those balls hit your controller, it resets immediately. So it's like,
that's super cool.
It's very like fast paced, and it's very simple, but he did really well with it, and it's a very successful game. And it was really early on in the Vive world, and it's just super weird. And like that kind of stuff is addicting, and it reminds me of Snake on the Nokia phone, Another thing, I guess it's not really a game, but it's who I've been working with for months now. The Wave VR is concerts in virtual reality. So that's who I've been actually working with for months now, and probably will be for a little bit yet. But it's like a game because you're in a space, but it's social. So when you log in and there's other people walking around like avatars, you can go up and talk to them, and it's basically a lobby you go into, and then there's specialized concerts. So they just did one with Toki Monster recently. We just announced next week we have one with Kill the Noise, who's rather large. He's on like Skrillex's label and does crazy electronic, insane music, EDM stuff. But you're basically getting crazy tripped out visuals and stuff, but in like kind of a game experience. It's all done in Unity, but you're listening to someone DJ while they're doing their own visuals, and like the world around you changes, and everything's kind of customized to the artist. So it's like the one for Toki Monster was all cell shaded because her artwork was kind of this comic book style. And what's cool about it is there's like in-game currency and unlocks you get where you can like go up and do fake quote drugs. They're not really drugs, but they're like a shader, and you pop them with another friend, and then for 30 seconds in this world around you, you have all these crazy fractalized visions around you, and then it fades back out, and there's like virtual champagne, and you can like make a hot tub form around you and all your friends are hanging out in like a hot tub in the middle of the concert or something. It's really weird, but it's really fun as someone that designs for concerts, like designing stuff for a VR concert. Man, you want to talk about no limits, man. There's like it's really fun. But that's like a game to me though too. And otherwise stuff like Tilt Brush and Medium, I have like 350, 400 hours in both of them probably, if not more. Like so it's like I most of my time goes to stuff like that. Another app that we haven't talked about at all that needs to be shouted out is Gravity Sketch, is also something that 3D artists should check out. If you're a little bit less on the sculpting creative side and you're more on the like polygon spline hard surface kind of tip and you want to block model stuff, Gravity Sketch is crazy. You can draw like cloth panels out with 2 controllers where it's connected between your hands and you're kind of just pulling it out and drawing a panel, and it's going to draw spline curves for all those, and you can go back and edit all those nodes and pinch and zoom and move pieces around and kind of fine tune stuff. And that can work in symmetry. It can work in like radial symmetry. You can do like, if you want to make some creative like tunnel sequence stuff, you could do it in an hour in Gravity Sketch, if not quicker.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
So I've seen a lot of people bringing that stuff into Octane and then posting it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like Jama Gerbrev from like ILM is obviously a great example because he's got a huge following and he's been doing some amazing stuff with Gravity Sketch and Octane. He's got a lot of other concept artists playing around with it. I was a beta tester for that. I think I'm going to keep testing some new stuff with them. But they're geared towards like, they were originally like an automotive design because it comes with like tools for like drawing a car and things like that.
Yeah, I see a lot of like airplanes and spaceships and stuff being made in there.
Yeah, its tools cater very well to hard surface stuff, and especially things like that. Like I do a lot of mechs and a lot of other stuff, but I did like some Archer, like a character, you know. What's cool is it also has a tool where it just has a default like mannequin human, but you can like break it into pieces where you can go and impose every little piece of this mannequin and then sculpt stuff on top of it or like sketch stuff around it, you know. So I did like an Archer jumping in the air that was shooting a bow, and he had like clothing I designed using the panel tools. So it's like, it is a very diverse app, but you know, they're geared towards professionals. Like they have like a monthly fee, I think, to own the pro version, you know, otherwise you pay like a one-time fee for limited layers and stuff. But they're gearing towards like studios and other things, which is really cool. Like a lot of VR stuff is kind of beginner stuff, and I think they're going for a little bit more technical audience.
Do you have a preference, the Oculus or the Vive?
That's a hard question, but I would say that my big scale immersive tilt brush paintings that I do for movies are always on the Vive because I have more space in its room scale and I can like actually properly stand up and move around. And I only have 2 sensors for my Rift. I'm going to get a third one to try room scale soon.
It works really well.
Yeah, I keep forgetting. I need to get that because my tracking's like a little bit funky on my Oculus, but I tend to use my Rift more only because I can access all my creative apps on one headset. So Medium and Quill I don't use very much, but it is exclusive. But Medium is an exclusive to Oculus. They own that app, and so I have to use it on the Rift. And I prefer the touch controllers. I would say that if I could have it, I would have the tracking of the Vive with the touch controllers of the Rift. And so, I'm kind of drawn. I have both. I'm blessed to have both. That's very something that not a lot of people have the option of doing. But I would say my Rift gets a lot more use these days.
Those controllers, I mean, they're just the best.
The touch controllers are so nice. But it's weird because I have so many hours, hundreds of hours logged on the Vive with Tilt Brush. For some reason, Tilt Brush with the Vive controller is my bread and butter. Like I can't seem to work very well in Tilt Brush with the touch controller, but everything else I use touch controllers for. So, I think it's maybe because of the touch wheel, you know, like on the thumb pads for the Vive. Like I tend to use those a lot in certain apps, and when you have to have that on a joystick, all of a sudden it's like a totally different experience. So yeah.
So we're going to go into a little section called Brograph Recommends. And this is basically when we have a guest on the show, we ask, like, you know, some of your favorite things. So first off, we wanted to ask, what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie favorite movie all time, or like just like recent?
All
let's do all time.
Yeah.
You know, it's really funny. I'm gonna probably get a lot of flack for this. One of my favorite movies. It's easily top 3. It might be number 1. Is Hot Fuzz by Edgar Wright, which is I'm a big British comedy fan. If we're not talking about sci-fi and all that stuff, like just like rewatchable value movie, I love that movie. But I'm a big fan of stuff. I can't ever pinpoint one movie. That's like top 3. But stuff like the Akira animated film was really influential at a young age. Blade Runner. Which the new one is phenomenal. I know it's got its shortcomings elsewhere in the story and stuff, but visually that's crazy.
It is pretty good, though.
It's pretty good. I actually think Batman Begins, Nolan's film, is pretty high up there for me. I'm a huge comic nerd, and I think that that's one of the best adaptations we've have of Batman, probably if not the best.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I'm a nerd, man. I get in this argument a lot with people. People assume that as an artist of what I do and making crazy stuff that I would like really serious movies, and I tend to watch stuff for entertainment these days, and in general I try not to get like really depressed about movies or like really like people watch stuff like really intense movies like Requiem for a Dream or something, and they watch that for their
favorite.
Like, and people love that movie.
That depresses me every time I watch that movie. I'm depressed.
It's so good though.
No, and
it's
people
so
love that,
good.
and I think that I can watch those movies like once and really appreciate their art form, but like I can't rewatch them, and they're not like ingrained in my brain,
It's funny. Requiem for a Dream. Like I literally, it took me years before I could rewatch that.
Yeah, and it's just one of those movies where like it's a little like there are some realness things going on there, and you're just like, whoa, this is intense, and like I don't have a problem with that. Like I think it's really important to watch movies like that. It's just as far as entertainment goes, it's not something I would lean towards. My friends always make fun of me because I watch a ton of like crappy action movies, and I love all the comic book movies, and I love all that stuff. Man, if you guys haven't seen the new Thor, holy crap, you have to go see that movie.
It is so good. It's so good.
The director is the guy who did like What We Do in the Shadows and stuff, and it reeks that humor. My favorite TV show is a show that's off air from England called The Mighty Boosh, which is just like the weirdest.
I'm old Greg.
Yeah, like the weirdest British stuff that's like super surreal, and like stuff like Flight of the Conchords was definitely directly influenced by that kind of stuff, and so was I think a lot of this, and it felt. That movie just felt like it was touching so many buttons of mine, like fantasy, comic, really badass scenes, but then like totally grounding it in this super surreal and like weird humor, and I loved it. And like that was a great culmination of stuff. But yeah, I know that's a loaded question about asking my favorite movie, but I go all over the place. I like the classics, everything like Alien, all those big sci-fi films that I grew up on are super influential to me. But the ones I listed are kind of the ones I still love going and revisiting and watching over and over again,
For sure.
How about your favorite music, like especially like while you're working? I imagine you listen to music.
Yeah. So if you know me, I used to DJ, and I have like 1,200 plus records behind me and stuff. My uncle was in the music industry. I'm very ingrained in music, so that's a long question. But I'll give you one thing that I love right now that's been on repeat, especially for working for me, is Fortet's new album called New Energy. Is incredible. If you're into like kind of atmospheric electronic stuff that's not EDM, it's not like mainstream. There's kind of some house beats in there, but it's just beautiful album. That's my one that's been on repeat that stands out in my mind that I can talk about for sure.
What do you think about Madian?
I know the name, not super familiar though.
Should check that album out. Only one album right now, so
good to know.
Really,
writing
really
that down.
Good though. Yeah,
cool.
You know what I've been rocking lately is Sia's new Christmas album.
Oh yeah, I actually went into a Starbucks this morning and they played Christmas music, and I had to leave. I was like, okay, this is time to leave now.
Dude. I was actually very impressed. I turned it on and I was like, ooh, Sia's got a Christmas album, all original songs. Well done.
Yeah, I think I still have a Destiny's Child Christmas CD somewhere or something.
Right? That's funny.
No, music is huge for me. I mostly honestly listen to a lot of jazz and like
that's
in
cool.
my free time. So yeah, a lot of stuff like that. Yeah, my range musically is pretty broad.
And when you're not listening to music, are you listening to podcasts?
So there are a few I've been falling behind in my podcast, but there's a few that I really like listening to when I can. I'm huge on like personal development stuff. So like I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss's podcast, the Tim Ferriss Show. I really like Joe Rogan Experience is great. I actually was tuned in to the very first Joe Rogan live stream he ever did. Like I'm a been long time fan of that guy's stuff. I also love The Collective, which I'm sure a lot of people talk about. Like Ash Thorpe's one is really good. Been with that since the beginning as well. Also, Giant Bombcast from the Giant Bomb guys, which is a gaming podcast, is incredible. Jeff Gershman and some of the other people on that show are some of the funniest people in games, in my opinion, and some of the best journalists. But it's just I think it's #1 rated gaming podcast still. It's really popular.
You ever listen to Back to Work with Merlin Mann?
No, I've heard of it though, and that's high on my list. I also like the Hardcore History is really good. If people are into that kind of stuff, that guy's really awesome. I can't remember his name, Carlin or something. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones. There's.
Have you heard My Brother and Me?
No.
You should.
That's a good one.
It's quite hilarious.
Yeah, I'm getting into this stuff. I wanna listen to more. So anyone that has suggestions, I'm definitely open to new stuff. But yeah, I like anything from nerdy stuff. But I really like hearing artists talk about stuff, and I like hearing personal development stuff. Like the Tim Ferriss Show, he gets people that are like world class athletes talking about their day to day. You know, like that kind of stuff's super eye opening. Even if you're not into it.
I'm sure you've. What about This American Life?
Yeah, This American Life. I love that. I grew up on a lot of NPR and National Public Radio in general. My dad was a radio DJ in college, and I love stuff. I grew up on like Prairie Home Companion and stuff. That's like OG podcast before it was podcast, but but like I love that kind of stuff. And This American Life is amazing. Radio Lab is amazing.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff is just super good.
And what about favorite plugin?
You skipped TV show.
No, we talked about that.
I guess I said Boosh, yeah.
Boosh
is probably up there. There are other ones that are up there that are more recent stuff. I like the Daredevil show, but plugin? Is that specific to cinema or anything?
Anything, really.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
Wow. This is a tough one. Honestly, is Octane count? Because that's kind of like a plugin for it. like I guess. I also would say like I love the Signal plugin from Grayscale Gorilla. That's really used quite often for me.
I used it for the first time in a project. I've tried many times to use it, thinking myself, oh yeah, this would be good for Signal, and it never worked out that way. And I finally found a project that it would work perfectly with, and I was so impressed by it. Once I finally had a use for it.
The new version with the sequencer is crazy. As far as like if we're talking like Photoshop plugins, like they made this kind of obsolete a little bit in the new version, but I use one called Brushbox, which is an amazing brush organizer for Photoshop, which is really important to me. You can make like folders, but the thing you can do that you can't do in the new version is you can make like color-coded folders and like custom headers with images. So you can have like a folder of like, here's my environment brushes, and you can have like a tree image behind it or something. You know, it's like really visually really nice for having large sets of brushes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the name of it again?
Brushbox. It's on Gumroad. It's really cheap. It's only like $5 or $10 or something like that. And it's a guy and his wife who developed it, and they're working on updating it right now for the newest version of Adobe. But I'm on 2017 only because of this plugin, because it's so helpful for organizing like hundreds of brushes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, headphones.
Right now I'm using some Astro Gaming ones that an old colleague of mine gave me that have been very solid. You guys just convinced me I need to get some Bose wireless ones, because I've been eyeing them and they're on sale today for Black Friday or whatever.
Right.
But personally, I use if I'm not using these Astro Gaming ones for gaming, I have just some basic like cheap in-ear monitor stuff. But I've always been a fan of Sennheiser. I have my DJ headphones. My DJ headphones are Ultrazone DJ1 Pros. But yeah, Sennheiser I would have if I could. Right now I'm trying to find the perfect wireless solution though, and I think the Bose ones are coming in real close for me.
So good. Good.
I'm just really I'm I'm not one of those like, a lot of people complain to me because I used to work for Apple, and they're like, oh, they got rid of the headphone jack and all that stuff. And I'm taking it just like the CD drive and the DVD drive. You got to embrace it. It's going away. Like no phone is going to have a headphone jack going forward. It already happened in the Pixel, and people are like, oh no, like I'm going to go back and buy this old model. And it's like, you better embrace it sooner or later. Otherwise it's going away. It's not that I want it to go away. I'm just saying it's you got to embrace where technology is moving, and wireless is for sure where a lot of stuff is going. So
I wish the biggest thing with that is though, like when there were no CD drives or whatever.
Oh, absolutely,
like,
absolutely. No, I don't. Yeah,
like companies started like doing their stuff either on like a USB or like being able to download it online. There's not a lot of people who are specifically only selling wireless headphones.
I agree, and that's
there's
my biggest
such an
beef
abundance of wired headphones. That's why I think it's so ridiculous.
No, I know, and it is definitely something I won't defend the decision on that. Obviously, I mean I don't have any say in that, but it's just like I can see why they do it. My biggest beef is I can't charge and listen at the same time, and that's why wireless is enticing to me because that's big for me. But yeah, I just think it's gonna be. They like to do that where they inject a thing like that and make the industry scramble to figure out solutions, and it's not always the best thing to do, but it does push stuff forward a little bit. But yeah, I don't think you think. I mean, here's a good question: do you think the Google Pixel would have had a headphone jack if they wouldn't have done it first? I don't know. I bet they were already designing it at the same time. You know, it probably was already being designed. But I'm wondering if like Google announced that first, how much hate they would have got compared to Apple doing it first. I'm just very curious about all that stuff.
Yeah, they probably would have gotten a lot more hate.
Yeah. It's interesting. Whoever does it first is going to get a lot of the flack, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like Apple doing it and getting the flack first, like they're known for doing stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh man, I was a Genius Bar person, man. I you know, many people yelled at me about DVD drives when that transitioned out. Like,
that's funny.
Dude, I got yelled at daily. So yeah. That was college days, but yeah.
Favorite website or Chrome extension?
Ooh, Chrome extension hands down is LastPass because I use that for everything. My password management. I paid for the Pro plan years ago and still give them money. I think even though you don't have to anymore. Yeah, that's really awesome. There's even a thing in LastPass now where if you die, you can like have a family member like have a link to your account where it will like give them access if you don't respond in a certain amount of days and stuff like that.
A dead man switch.
There's some really, I know that sounds morbid as hell, but like that's really important. Like that's your entire database of access of passwords and stuff. Otherwise, website. Man.
Well, it could be It's really website or extension. So
extension is the main thing. Is LastPass is life-saving to me. The mobile app is amazing too, and I have everything in there, and I think that like stuff like ArtStation's great to look at for a website, I guess.
Favorite life hack?
Oh, I love life hacks. This is a big one. I should have thought about this one a little bit. Man, I know I'm going to come up with one right after this podcast is done that I should have talked about, but a cool one. Hey, since we're talking about VR, here's a cool one that I didn't actually come up with this, but it works out really well. There's a website called Float Lab, I think, that sells these like headphone hook adapters, and they're on a 3M strip. I'll try to find you guys a link if you can't find it. They're like $11 or $12. They perfectly fit underneath your desk, and they can sit 2 touch controllers on them, hanging next to each other, and then you get a second one, and it lets you hook your headset onto it as well. And they're like under your desk VR headset holders. And Goro Fujito, who works for Oculus, I think, as an artist, talked about that in one of his videos once, and I was just like blown away. It's totally not used for that. They're like headphone hooks. I know that's super basic, but it's something I did
Float
recently.
Lab and you get these sensory deprivation.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's not. Float Lab is definitely like a sensory deprivation tank place, but it's called, maybe it's Elevation Lab. I'll send you. We'll make sure we get the link for people.
All right.
But it's they're just these really simple, like rubberized with a 3M strip on the underneath, and you can use them for that. And I know it's really basic, but it was kind of a big revelation for me.
It might be Elevation Lab. Yeah, I'm looking. Here it is, the Anchor by Elevation Lab.
Yeah, that's it. They make some really posh like iPhone docks and stuff like that. They're pretty minimal on stuff, but God, I know that's a really boring life hack. I might come up with one before we finish here. I'll come up with something better. But that one's revelation though, because it's like people always comment on it when they come over to my house because it keeps everything really organized for your VR headsets.
And so, what is your computer setup then? PC or Mac?
I just talked about how I used to work for Apple, and I have a Mac Pro sitting on my desk here. I've pretty much switched entirely to Windows in the last year and a half to 2 years. I am on My main at home setup that I'm on right now, I still have a 27-inch 2010 cinema display from Apple that's showing some light leaking on the side and is probably need to be replaced soon, but it's on an Ergontron arm. I have a lot of Corsair parts in my custom built PC. My good friend Chris used to work for Corsair and help me out on a number of stuff on my build, but I have the Airflow Edition case from them, which is like a big black monolith tower. I can't remember the exact model number, and then if you just type Airflow Edition Corsair, you'll find it. I have 32 gigs of RAM from Corsair Dominator Platinum. I got a liquid cooler from Corsair, the H115 on my i7 6900K Intel chip. If people are interested, I do have a PC parts picker link I can send you guys to.
Cool.
Nice.
Cool.
I currently have two 1080 Founders Editions in there, and then I also have a friend's let me use his Titan X for a number of almost a year plus now, but I have a Titan X slammed in the middle of that too, for purely just for Octane usage on that. And then I have some KRK Rocket 8 monitors. I have a Blue Yeti microphone that's all black on a $15 Amazon arm here on my desk, which is working out pretty nicely. And then my other main screen and workhorse is I have a Cintiq Companion 2 from Wacom or whatever. And
Cool.
That is, when you unplug it from your computer, if you didn't know, is a full standalone Windows laptop. So I have Windows 10 on there, and it's basically my laptop now. I have the highest end one, which is almost the exact same specs as my Retina display MacBook Pro. So it's 55.
How big is it?
It's a 13-inch, so it's like a tablet though, and it's
How do you like it?
I love it. The new ones look like they fixed a lot of the issues with this one, but I swear by it. I want to get a bigger Cintiq for home use, but I really like it for what it is. It has a 512 SSD. It's got, the only downside is it has Intel Iris graphics in it, but the new ones fix that. The new ones have better graphics cards. The new ones, the Wacom Mobile Studio Pros or whatever that these replaced. But it's got, the coolest thing about it is I have this 3-in-1 cable, and I can plug it into a Mac or a PC and use it as a second monitor with a Cintiq, and 90% of its use is sitting connected to my PC here as a second monitor. Like right now, if you saw what I was looking at, I have Photoshop open with a document in front of me while all this other stuff is on my second monitor. For digital painting and ZBrush usage, I can't recommend having a tablet enough. You pretty much can't do without it. It's really funny though, because before this I had an Intuos 3 that I was still using. It still works. My brother has it now, but like that was used. It was like going from a Pinto to a Ferrari, man. It was quite an upgrade. But yeah, and if for the nerds out there, I also just had I upgraded my keyboard recently. I have a Corsair K70 RGB, or just an R actually. It's just red glowing keyboard. But I also just bought an An Pro it's like a 60% keyboard, so it's got like a function key, and to use like arrows you hit function WASD, it's like really small, but it's wireless mechanical with RGB backlighting. It's pretty cool. It's pretty tiny.
Nice.
I mostly have it because I like having it next to my Cintiq for keyboard shortcuts, and it takes up a lot less space than my giant Corsair one usually. So
cool.
And I also just bought a Synology server. I have a 4 bay 916 plus Synology, I think it's called, and I have 4 6TB drives in there, and they're RAID 5 for anyone that's really interested.
Cool. I guess before we take off, we do need to head over to our Beeple's People segment.
Beeple's People, where'd you get that Greeble? Beeple's People, what's up with that guy?
Yes, I've heard things about this segment.
If you're following along at home, we're gonna go to we're gonna start with November 23rd, year of our Lord 2017. This one is called Resist, and I gotta say, he's throwing us through a loop here, pretty big loop. Because this is right before Thanksgiving.
Steve, if you haven't
I haven't participated.
So basically, Beeple's People.
Yes.
We'll break down how we think he did it, and then we have this ongoing story that we think he's going with.
Kind of
Yes.
just, imagine it's almost like a stoner story, where,
Yeah.
know
you're
about
just
that.
sitting around like, dude, you know what that is? That's kind of how it is.
Yeah. Which one are we starting with? Resist. Which one is that? Which piece
November
is that?
23rd with the giant turkey.
Oh, yeah, with the giant turkey. Wow, yeah, I
Yeah.
just saw that one actually recently.
So
That one's great. I think he's been using a lot of the Kitbash 3D stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like those that's like the slum building stuff I think they just came out with on that one.
Now,
do you know who makes that? I had someone asking on the Slack about
Kitbash 3D is very new. It's Max Burnham, who's a map painter, and then this other guy who I feel bad because I've definitely participated in a lot of their streams, but it's two guys. They're like map painters in the industry, and they created kitbash3d.com, and they have like a lot of buildings for people that are in like the kind of concept art map painting community, and it works great for people doing this kind of stuff too in motion graphics. But they just put out kits of different themed buildings, and they've been having contests on Instagram just recently for people. They gave out like a free sample kit of like 5 or 6 buildings, and then you can create stuff with them and then tag their hashtag, and then they have a contest and you might win a pack. I think they actually have everything 25% off right now for the weekend too.
nice.
Cool.
But yeah, that seems like he's using a lot of these buildings in the last like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's what this looks like. And then, the turkey, obviously Thanksgiving, but like, if you're going along with our story, there have been some giant animals before. There
That's
has
true.
been a giant
That's
pig.
True. You know what? I totally forgot about that. You got the
Yeah.
giant McDonald's pig.
Yeah.
And so now
it could
this
be
is
one
like
of these got
probably the
loose.
giant. Maybe the turkey got loose.
That's what I'm thinking.
The giant turkey got loose, and so it was the one destroying all this area.
yeah, he's
So
got
do
a
you
lot of political symbolism in there. I think a lot of
right.
the turkey's taken over. I don't know. Yeah, there's I always found that like he's very current with his images, based on like current events going on or something, which is always interesting to see how he's pulling from on stuff.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. But yeah,
Anyway,
the other
this one was
yeah.
also the day of Thanksgiving. So
Right.
That's a little obvious on that one. A little obvious. The other ones are a
you know
little
what?
bit more obscure.
At the same time, is he revealing that maybe that's why all of these buildings have been destroyed and all of these photos is just a giant
Maybe.
turkey the whole time?
Maybe maybe it's like some real deep Black Friday kind of vibe there or something. Like
Yeah.
this is the leftovers.
Turkey's revenge.
Yeah. And then speaking of Black Friday, isn't that the next one? That's like
yes,
Oh, yeah. So, the next one is November 24th, Black Friday. Now, I got to say, really pretty for one. I am curious if he just dug into the basic gold texture that is on the Octane material library.
yeah, it looks really nice. I can never get gold to look that good, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's definitely with the lighting on here is really nice too.
yeah, for sure. He did a really good job.
It's the
on that.
lighting, but here, well, there
Little
are a
bump
couple.
mapping on the ground. But
Yeah, and I enlarged that. That very much to me looks like Perlin noise. I'm
Yeah.
99% sure that's Perlin. And then, which means that this is Octane, most likely. And but with the gold, I don't know if I brought this up on the show. There is one particular gold on the Octane material library that every time I go to download gold, I'm like, oh, which one is it? I know there's one of these golds that crashes Cinema 4D every time. And I don't know if y'all, there's probably somebody out there going, I know, like totally, because like for like the last 2 versions of Cinema, that one gold Octane texture, you load it from Otoy and it crashes Cinema. I don't understand the reason.
I think I actually did that once, to be honest with you. That's kind of weird
Yeah.
to bring that up, but
And there's
mean,
like 4 or 5 good golds, and and I never remember which one is the crashy one.
this one was funny because it reminded me of how everyone buys computer parts on Black Friday to build PCs, and this reminded me of like a circuit board, pretty hardcore. And
For
like,
sure.
It does.
And I know, and
I
like the
think-
gold is playing on the whole like money thing. I think a little bit, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I saw this as these are all the big corporations who are just basically gold coating their entire
Yeah.
stuff because they're selling so much
With
stuff
this
on Black
made-up
Friday.
consumeristic holiday, like
Midas touch thing.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be like water almost? Because it looks like there's almost like little boats or something down there, but I couldn't tell if those are just supposed to be buildings.
Yeah.
But that's a really, really pretty one. Shout outs to Mike
is,
on that one.
yeah.
It's really nice.
And as far as the storyline goes, I mean, it could be a separate storyline for the Black Friday thing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see how that ties into our other storyline.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what Mike does with his stuff, where he does what I do a lot with my Instagram, where I just don't tell people what the story is, but there is usually a story or some kind of behind it. But like, I love letting people try to interpret it. Sometimes it's really fun.
Well, and if you've been
hit us up.
following along with ours too, it's like this crazy long storyline where we've tied them all together, and he's like, "Yeah, it's just whatever."
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing too about like dissecting some of these pieces. Whenever we're talking about something super technical, like with Mike, it's probably leaning on the easy, simple side, more
Right.
than you think. Like he really knows how to like push stuff in a simple manner and make amazing results. So
Yeah.
he's also really humble, so it might be way cooler
Right.
than we think.
And then November 25th, Crystal Pilgrimage.
Yeah, I love the rocks on this one, the snow and stuff. I wonder how much of
Yeah.
that is all 3D or if he like photo bashed any of that. Like some of it looks like really nice on the shadows and stuff there.
Yeah.
Could be, I don't know, maybe.
He's getting more into like Photoshop map painting manipulation, so it's hard to tell sometimes like what he's adding in. But this looks like it also
World
used some of the
Machine.
kit. Looks like it used some of the Kitbash 3D buildings in the back, as well as like the World Machine stuff in the front. It seems like,
Yeah.
but yeah, like he's really got a. This one could be a lot of stories here as a concept artist. It's like this could be anything. It could be like, I see these as like villagers taking this crystal ball to some like crazy like mystic out in the mountains or something.
Well, we've
Yeah.
been maybe this whole crystal ball is what helps the transportation to the other world.
Yeah, because it has this like multiple. It has almost futuristic, but like old timey
Yes.
in the same time. Yeah.
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 I mean, it could be related to the portals. You nenever know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. Like
Yeah.
maybe this is the starting point of the portal.
Yeah, it's actually funny because I've been posting a lot of characters on my own Instagram recently, and most of them are all related to a kind of. I haven't really talked about it, but I do have an underlying kind of like connection to these characters, and there's like some ideas I've been playing with, like story wise, but like I don't really tell people that, and this seems like it'd be a great example of like something he could have been building towards. It's cool to see him post stuff like this, and then you maybe see an animation later on that he did that looked like it was evolved from that in some way.
For sure.
I would really like to see him animate some more character-driven stuff like this. So
Yeah.
I hope that's in the near future.
Totally.
God, I just saw his newest one he posted. Jeez, sorry. I'm just like,
Yeah,
The super cluster.
yeah, that's not even. I don't even know if that's on our topic of discussion.
It's
but
not.
Wow,
But still, he
it's-
always seems to post one right as soon as we start the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has.
The pinks and purples and blues, like those whole colors are super in right now.
Yeah, I try, man. It's like, yeah, like everything red and blue is like so prevalent in my work, and it's like I'm trying to like almost have to like break myself from it now because of so much stuff I'm seeing kind of play with that color scheme. I need to like have it stand out in some way, but it's yeah, he always does stuff that you think is generic, but then you're just like, man, looks so good. Like those colors are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, man,
All right.
it's awesome.
Let's
Well,
move
I
on to email social.
Email
Right.
social. We got a couple things. Number one, from Matt Rittman. He actually sent in, he posted this on Slack, but he sent this in. He said, "Hey guys, I've been listening to your podcast for a while now and really enjoy them. I was just going to mention if you wanted to share something in a future podcast, you could talk about the AK-47 animation I created. I use Cinema 4D, Corona, and After Effects. I did a very short blog post about it here, so we'll post the link to it. And
It's
he
super
said-
cool. It's basically going into how an AK-47 works and
Yeah.
operates. Very neat. Super
And the
cool
fact that it's
animation.
done in Corona too is kind of cool because we're putting out these tutorials in Corona and stuff right now. So he said if you got any questions about it, I'd be honored to answer. Thanks. Anyway, thanks again for the awesome podcast. You guys rock. So we'll
you
post
rock.
that. And then
You rock,
Sage.
Matt.
Okay, so Sage had to say, well, now I feel like I need to defend my Muse title sequence statement. I didn't say it was a ripoff. I don't think I said that I said it was a ripoff.
I haven't
just
watched that title
inspired
sequence yet.
by-
Oh,
you know.
it's so good.
It's
I've
good.
seen the thumbnail a lot shared. I need to sit down and watch it. I've heard it's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, it is.
We were just saying it felt inspired by some other like Westworld-ish stuff.
Yeah, everything's inspired by something. It's like
Yeah.
really hard. It's really hard to avoid it. And honestly, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of art directors come to you with other stuff and they want you to do something similar.
Exactly.
Sometimes you don't have a say in it. You try to push your client out of those boundaries, but it doesn't always work.
He said, I was just more saying, it felt very Pat Clare, and even his style starting to feel a little repetitive. Shallow depth of field, mid-tight camera of stuff in a void studio. A lot of his big sequences feel the same. Daredevil, Westworld, The Crown, American Gods.
God, that guy, I need to look at Pat Clare. That's all really good intros.
Yeah. Black Sails isn't him, but he feels the same way about it. And he said, and we've had a slew of similar styled student pieces in the subreddit that I've critiqued them the same way. The Muse sequence feels like one of those. It's next level beautiful, but it's really indulgent in showing off the object. But on the flip side, there's sequences like Stranger Things, Night Manager, which is Pat Clare, Castlevania, especially the second half. They feel really different from those and from each other. Even the other Marvel titles, Jessica Jones, Defenders, Punisher, which definitely draw inspiration from True Detective. They have such different feel from the Pat Clare 3D style. Even things like the OFF title sequence or the South by Southwest Gaming Awards that Imaginary Forces did, they use similar cinematic conventions of the shallow depth of field, mid-tight camera pans and orbits, but they're contextualized so much more, seem to be less indulgent of this object they're showing and seem to focus more on the idea of whatever it is they're introducing. I mean, the fact that you guys didn't even know what the hell the Muse sequence was introducing to me says a lot about how indulgent in its own beauty it is. It's like its own beauty and its own narrative is more important than the show it's supposed to be introducing.
This guy would not like my work, probably.
So I think that's a big part of the reason why people, even people who aren't into 3D, like the Game of Thrones opening, and why most ripoffs of it, except the Simpsons one, fail. It's very beautiful, but it also brings you into the world of Westeros in a way the Muse sequence doesn't. But we can agree to disagree. I still love all of you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
And you know what? Here's what I'll say. Us as 3D designers can look at this stuff and be like, oh yeah, that looks like that. That looks like that. That looks like his style. Blah blah blah.
Right.
Yeah.
But any layman just watching TV is not going to get it at all.
Yeah.
They're just going to be like, oh, this is very pretty.
That's very hard to separate yourself
Yeah.
from sometimes in this industry. Is like if I go to a concert, like I get ruined by concerts now because I'll just sit there and be like, oh, like how did they trigger that clip, or like why'd they have this come in on this side? Like they should have done this color or something. And it's like it's really hard. It's like
Seriously, when Dave and I we went to Dave, me, and my wife, we went to
Imagine Dragons.
The Dead Mouse show at Red Rocks. And Dave and I are just sitting there watching the visuals the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife's over there taking video of stuff. She's like, "Where you guys are the video guys? Why aren't you doing this?" We're like, "We're way into the visuals right now."
Yeah.
we're
No, I
just
mean it's
taking it in.
That's why I'll never go to like a music festival. It's like too much of like the industry I work in, and it's like I just the magic's all ruined. You just sit there and critique it like an asshole, and you're like, but it's not like a bad thing. It's a really good thing to be able to like sit there and do that. And people always laugh when I do that, but I can see where this person's coming from because they're obviously ingrained in this industry a bit.
And it's not like saying that it's a ripoff. Like, I mean,
No.
it's just saying, there's been a lot of this lately or inspired by this lately. It's not, it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad.
No,
a bad thing.
I actually love showing off the object type stuff. I do that a lot myself, and I that's why this person wouldn't like my stuff probably. But I do like Daredevil, Westworld, American Gods. Those intros are amazing because they do. I mean, I think they do a really cool thing. Yeah, I can see exactly where they're coming from.
Yeah,
For sure.
And then the last one is from Stefan Kopke. I have no idea how to pronounce that. It says, "Hi there, bros. First of all, cool stuff you did for us Octaners. Makes me leave my office a little earlier." This is about Luminous. I own Luminous and the dirt.
The dirty piece.
The dirty piece.
Pixel dirt rig.
The pixel dirt rig. My question is just as obvious, but not still 100% clear. Is Luminous locked to a certain node directly to a C40 license or not, and the answer to that is no.
Install it on your other machine.
Yeah, go for it,
Or
bro.
all the machines in your office.
Yeah.
Just don't give it away,
just
man.
So good.
Just don't
Exactly.
upload it to a torrent site.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I responded to him and said, nah, you can install it on whatever machine, just don't upload it to a torrent site.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most software doesn't have harsh restrictions like people think, but it's like it's a real lame thing to do to re-upload someone's, especially small businesses like
Yeah.
you guys. Like, support independent creators, man. Like, yeah, you're never gonna be able to stop that with like Photoshop
And
and, all
now
these
is
big
the
apps,
time to
but-
do it.
Yeah,
Like this is when we buy a lot of
Yeah.
our software and stuff is during Black Friday, Cyber Monday
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
I
mean,
saw some people on CG peers asking for our plugin. I was like, dude, you don't have like $49 for the Black Friday sale? Like, come on,
Yeah.
dude.
I mean,
We'll give you a discount,
yeah.
dude.
What's even, I mean, I love people like you guys that can even embrace that there's these private communities of people that are going to pirate stuff, you know, and it's, I love when I see people that try to get that up front. They'll like even comment in the room and be like, hey, I'm the main guy who made this, like, just hit me up and I'll like give you a discount or something because you guys are
Yeah.
at least willing to like look at it, you know, like,
Yeah.
I just think no one's ever going to combat piracy, but we can definitely make things easily accessible and affordable that people won't need to. And
Yeah.
that's how I believe you will always beat piracy. You know how much money I spent on Gumroad? I don't even want to talk about it. Like it's like $5 texture pack, like $5 like reference image pack. Like
Yeah.
Yep.
here's my layered PSD and a really quick time lapse. Like, yeah, I'll give you $10 for that. Like like it's just like I do that a lot. And Gumroad and these other sites have really helped revolutionize that a bit, which is cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. We appreciate you being on.
Yeah, man, I my first podcast, guys. This is very exciting.
Oh man, you did
Yeah,
fantastic.
you did great.
I barely had to do any work today.
You guys gave me a license to ramble. That's all you need to do, so it's good.
That's what we do on this show.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it was great. You guys are awesome. I love that you guys are doing this podcast series and keeping people kind of going in the community. It's awesome. It's really,
Thanks, man.
yeah.
So if people want to find you, what's the best place? Your website?
Yeah, I'm most active socially on Instagram and Twitter probably, and everything you can find me everywhere at just Steve Teeps, SteveTeeps, and my
Okay.
website is steveteeps.com. Currently, you might see me changing things around in there because I'm currently updating it and kind of overhauling it all. It's pretty awful. I just don't have a lot of time because I'm usually working on stuff. But if you have anything, you can also email me at info@steveteeps, and I'm happy to answer stuff or talk to
Cool.
people.
Cool. You got to get
Cool,
on
man.
the Brograph Slack. And,
Yeah, I
talk
know.
to
Yeah,
people
come hang
there.
out with us.
Yeah, just
Dude,
send
we got
me
a whole channel called VR Corner.
yeah, send me an invite. I would love to hang out. You know,
Totally.
it's great.
Brograph.com/Slack.
Oh,
Yeah, open
there you go
invite.
now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, now I got it. Now everyone else does too. Yay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
You
Well,
can-
I'm gonna
you
try
can-
to actually export a new piece here and post it before this is done.
Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. It helps get our ratings up there. You can also subscribe to the show on your podcatcher of choice to also help with our ratings a little bit if you're just a YouTube or a website listener. Subscribe to our newsletter. We send that out every once in a while and give updates on what we're doing. You can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the No Brograph, No Mograph tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Bab 2020 t-shirt. All
I need to get
profits-
one of those still.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
do.
you do.
All the profits go to Doctors Without Borders. We've got the limited edition Gate and Simone shirt, and pretty soon I need to get back on that and get this shirt fixed. Our Render Things t-shirt is going to be coming out pretty soon as well. And I have noticed that I did see that Amazon merch is now allowing for long sleeve shirts, so we might do something
Oh,
in the
really?
long sleeve realm as well. So
Okay.
that'll be fun.
Cool.
And we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, of course, YouTube, Brograph.com, and Twitch. Make sure you check us out Thursday night live and check out some of our other stuff besides the podcast. So,
Cool.
thanks again for being on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. I really, really do appreciate it. So it's really cool.
Awesome.
All right. Until next time, I'm Dave.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
Have a good one.
Later, bros.
It's pretty good, I guess. Brograph.com, an online resource for learning Cinema 4D, After Effects, and other motion graphics tools specifically catered to help you prevail as a motion graphic designer.
What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph motion graphics tutorial.
With tutorials, plugins, and now a podcast with tens of thousands of listeners worldwide.
Yeah, it's a great community to be part of.
We give you professional time-saving tips, industry news, interviews, shortcuts, and lessons that help keep you current in the world of motion design.
Go into HDR Studio, take the render settings, pick the HDR, put in a reflection, and gorgeous.
I love projects that scare me. When our art director comes to us and asks for something that I had never done before, man, it gets me pumped.
Our weekly long-form podcast will give you the latest news, help you in your file management, hardware configuration, and client relations. Learn about the latest render engines, modeling techniques, and workflow integration while staying entertained.
Real nice banana.
Ah, that's so funny. All right. I'm going to live forever.
Our Brograph Talks are a chance to see the way industry leaders from around the globe are changing the face of motion design.
Sometimes you got to make stuff that you're not going to put on your reel, and I'm not here to judge.
The podcasts and talks include people like Beeple, Barton Damer, Nick Campbell, Andrew Kramer, David Ariev, Chad Ashley, Paul Babb, EJ Hassenfrost, Mitch Myers, Chris Schmidt, Jules Urbach, Cornelius Dammert, David Brodeur, Andy Needham, Caitlin Kaju, Zubair Parker, Noseman, Ryan Bean, Casey Hupke, Nick Lyons, Sage, Joey Korenman, Jeremy Cox, Rick Barrett, John Dickinson, Matthias Omatola, Patrick Goski, Brandon Clements, Steve Teeple, Tom Glimpse, Patrick Longstream, Julia Simone, Devin Coe, Al Heck, and even Deadmau5.
You get that render done. Yeah, you better frame what?
Our Brograph breakdowns go behind the projects and give you an insight on what it's like to manage and maintain your own personal business or work for a large company. Join us for live sessions, check out our useful plugins, watch time-lapse projects, interact with us, and send us email questions and topic ideas. Or just hit the Rando Render button and do an imaginative daily that'll keep you on your toes.
Take all your dreams and let's do it!
Subscribe today and get automatic updates on the latest tutorials, tricks, tips, and inspiration brought to you by industry professionals Dave Koss and Matt Milstead.
We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here.
Subscribe now to Brograph Tutorials. It's pretty good, I guess.